Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 37, The Undying Warriors. Crackle. The bonfire was blazing. Caesar, Linley, Zisler, and the 5 Barker brothers sat around the campfire. Bebe was resting on Linley's thigh, while Hera was lying behind Linley. Camping overnight in the wilderness was fairly dangerous. But who or what could possibly threaten Linley's group? Especially with that deity-level expert amongst them. "Why did you save us?" the eldest of the 5 brothers said in a loud voice. Linley and Zisler all turned to look at Caesar. This was a question they were curious about as well. Caesar glanced at the 5 of them. He didn't respond, instead asking them a question of his own. "Your father? Your mother? All our relatives are dead. As for our parents? We were orphans since we were young." Barker replied. They were now in their 30s. To them, who had spent their entire lives in the war-torn lands of the 18 northern duchies, growing up without parents wasn't anything particular special. After all, in those war-torn lands of the 18 northern duchies, orphans were a common sight. Orphans. Caesar let out a long sigh. "I didn't expect that after all these years, the Armand clan Amanda whose fame shook the Yulon continent would fall to such a state." The 5 Barker brothers, Linley and Zisler all started. "Lord Caesar, are you saying that the Barker brothers are?" Linley had a guess as to what Caesar was saying. Caesar nodded. "Right. These 5 siblings belong to the Armand clan, the clan of the Undying Warriors, one of the 4 supreme warrior clans of the Yulon continent." Undying Warriors. Barker and his siblings all stared at each other in shock. How is that possible? The 5 brothers rose to their feet, stunned. They were orphans since youth. How could they dare imagine that they belonged to one of the supreme warrior clans? Linley had already guessed the truth as soon as he heard Caesar say the words, Armand clan. After all, Linley's own clan records included information on each of the 4 supreme warrior clans, the Dragon Blood Warriors Barak clan, the Violet Flame Warriors Hyde clan, the Tiger Striped Warriors Prey Bole clan, and the Undying Warriors Armand clan. 5,000 years ago, these 4 clans indeed were extremely famous. Aside from the war god and the high priest, without question, the 4 supreme warriors stood at the absolute pinnacle of human power. Although there were other so-called peak-stage saint-level combatants, those peak-stage saint-level combatants couldn't match the supreme warriors. Power and insight, these were 2 mutually supporting, mutually complementing things. For example, right now, Linley's level of understanding was very high, he had surpassed the impose level, and was nearing the peak-stage saint level in terms of understanding. But his actual power was extremely weak. Naturally, his attack force was far weaker than that of a saint-level combatant. Historically, the 3rd Dragon Blood Warrior had used a heavy warhammer. When he had reached the saint level, he was only at the level of wielding something heavy as though it were light. But despite that, he still possessed astonishing attack force. This was because his body possessed a terrifyingly high degree of power and battle chi. A person's strength and battle chi were his most basic foundations. The higher one's level of understanding, the better one would be able to utilize those basics. For example, if your basics were at 100, but you were at a low level of understanding, your actual attack power might just be 50. But if you had a high level of understanding, you might be able to use all 100 of your attack power, or perhaps even more, reaching 200 attack power. The Supreme Warriors, by their very nature, possessed several times more physical strength and battle chi than other saint-level combatants. Even if they were a bit inferior in terms of insight and understanding, their attacks would still be very terrifying. This was the natural gift of the Supreme Warriors. There was nothing that could be done for it. They were able to gain an unfair advantage over others via their natural gifts. Your bodies must be extremely tough. Caesar sighed. The 5 Barker brothers glanced at each other, then nodded. The second of the 5 brothers, Ankan K, nodded and said, "It's impossible for us to train in battle chi, but just through our muscle power, we are on the level of warriors of the 8th rank. Aside from the 4 supreme warriors, how could anyone else possibly break past the natural limitations of the body and reach the 8th rank just based on their body and muscles? Caesar shook his head and said. Linley was now certain as well. Only the 4 supreme warriors were restricted to using their own special battle chi cultivation methods and be unable to train normal battle chi. Amongst the 4 supreme warriors, the undying warriors have the toughest bodies. Their defense is very powerful, and their attacks are legendary as well. The only weakness is that you are a bit slow. Caesar sighed. Barker, you and your brothers are so young, but you were able to reach the 8th rank just based on your muscles and bodies. Aside from the most physically powerful of the 4 supreme warriors, the undying warriors, who could possibly achieve this? Linley nodded as well. Right. He himself was a dragon blood warrior, but if he were to try to reach the 8th rank based purely on physical training, who knows how long it would take. Even his younger brother Warden, who trained in accordance with the secret Dragon Blood Manual, had only reached the 7th rank this year at age 17. Aside from the elders of your clan, I'm afraid there is no one who knows more about you undying warriors than myself. You are definitely undying warriors. There is no question about this at all. Caesar said with absolute certainty. And what's more, the 5 of you possess an extremely high degree of natural talent. If you were to train using the secret undying manual, then most likely you would have already entered the 9th rank by now. The secret undying manual. Barker and his brothers were confused. Linley explained, Barker, the truth is, all of the 4 supreme warrior clans find other types of battle chi to be unusable. Only by training in accordance with certain special ways can we develop battle chi. As for your undying warrior clan, you can only train using the secret undying manual. No wonder we couldn't train battle chi no matter what we tried. The 5th brother, Gates Guy Ci, said with a sigh. If the 5 of you had been in possession of the secret undying manual, there's no way you would have been caught originally. Caesar sighed. The 4 supreme warriors all possess extremely powerful attacks. Amongst them, the undying warriors possess the highest defense, the tiger stripe warriors are the fastest, the violet flame warriors possess the strange nirvana rebirth ability, while the dragon blood warriors are the most balanced, possessing powerful attack, defense, and speed. Caesar was a man of Doring Coart's era. This was also the era when the supreme warriors appeared in the world. Lord Caesar, why is it that you treat us so specially? Barker said with curiosity. Hearing these words, Caesar couldn't help but think back to the past. His expressions grew complex. After a long time, he sighed. Your ancestor, Armand, was the dearest friend and bro that I, Caesar, have ever had. Armand, the first clan leader of the Undying Warrior clan, was also the first Undying Warrior. 5,000 years ago, the Yulan continent was in the midst of what was most likely the most chaotic, most dangerous era I have ever seen. The 4 supreme warriors appeared out of nowhere, while the war god O'Brien became famous after his titanic clash with the High Priest. The Yulan Empire fragmented, as did the Poant Empire. The entire continent sank into a mass of fire and floods. Linley and the others all listened carefully, even though they knew this already. And this was just what was going on the surface. Caesar grinned at Linley. Actually, that era was much more complicated than you can imagine. The Yulan continent had more than just our native experts. Even powerful combatants from other planes had descended to the Yulan continent. Powerful combatants from other planes. Linley, Zisler, and the Barker brothers were all stunned. Right. Caesar chuckled. To you, these are all distant, far-away events, but that era really was chaotic. Many Saint-level combatants lost their lives. In that era, Saint-level combatants were nothing special, because there were many powerful experts who had descended, including many deity-level combatants. Many deity-level combatants. Linley felt his head grow dizzy. Right. Caesar nodded. Actually, 5,000 years ago, organizations in some higher planes paid a very high price so as to allow their people to enter the Yulon continent. There was a reason they did this. Linley, you simply don't know how fierce, how ruthless those battles back then were. At that time, Armand and I joined forces as we roamed the Yulon continent. Several times, I nearly died, but Armand rescued me. But of course, I helped out Armand several times as well. Caesar fell silent at this point, as though he were reminiscing about past events between himself and Armand. Linley was growing puzzled. The Poant Empire and the Yulon Empire had fragmented 5,000 years ago. The war god had entered the deity realm and became famous 5,000 years ago. The four supreme warriors had also suddenly appeared out of nowhere 5,000 years ago. And now, according to Caesar, 5,000 years ago, even experts from other planes had descended to the Yulon continent. 5,000 years ago, something incredibly major must have happened. Linley thought to himself. Enough of that. By the time your power reaches a certain level, even if you don't want to know, there'll be someone who will tell you. Caesar chuckled. Linley suddenly had the sense that the Yulon continent wasn't as simple a place as he had thought it to be. Actually, there's no need to force many things in life. Look at me. I eat when I should and play with women when I want to. I'm as carefree as I want to be. How wonderful is that? But look at that O'Brien, and that high priest. Don't be mistaken by their fame and glory. In reality, they are under enormous pressure. Caesar quirked his lips. Linley, Zisler, the 5 Barker siblings, Bebe and Haru all silently listened. Listening to Caesar, this deity-level expert, casually discuss the affairs of the most puissant experts on the Yulon continent, Linley had a very strange feeling. Only after reaching the deity level will one have the power to move mountains at will. Linley silently thought to himself. Caesar glanced at Linley. Linley, let me give you a word of advice. Lord Caesar, please guide me. Linley said very modestly, as though he were a student again. Caesar nodded. I know there is a very deep enmity between yourself and the Radiant Church. But right now, you are far too weak. Even if you are able to wreck some of the plans of the Radiant Church and give them some small problems, you aren't able to damage their foundations at all. I recommend that you quietly train for a time first. I don't ask that you train to an excessively high level. But at least, after transforming, you need to be at the saint level. That will be enough. Caesar had already realized that Linley possessed a very high level of understanding. As long as Linley's level of power were to enter the saint level, then, aided by his deep understanding of reality, when faced with peak stage saint level combatants, even if he wasn't able to win, he would still have the hope of escaping. Understood. Linley nodded. Barker. Caesar looked at the 5 Barker brothers. Lord Caesar. The 5 of them were extremely respectful. They now believed that they indeed were the descendants of the Undying Warrior clan. Since the man in front of them was a life and death friend of their ancestor, naturally they were very respectful. Caesar nodded. All of the 4 supreme warrior clans have decayed. Armand's clan has now decayed to the point where even your ancestral training methods have been lost. Fortunately, in the past, during the course of the dozens of years I had spent traveling with Armand, I procured a copy of the Secret Undying Manual. It should still be within the general headquarters of my Saber organization. Hearing these words, the 5 siblings' eyes shone. They had just watched Linley transform. All of the 4 supreme warriors had their own transformations. Even pre-transformation, the 5 of them had the power of warriors of the 8th rank. Once they acquired the secret manual, they would be able to transform, and by then, their power would increase enormously. However, there's a bit of distance from here to the general headquarters. Tomorrow morning, I plan to personally make a trip. Caesar said. If those high-ranking members of Saber who had been personally trained by him in the past were to hear these words coming from Caesar, they probably would die from shock. The old master, Caesar, was legendarily lazy. There was over 10,000 miles distance from here to the general headquarters. This journey would be an extremely tiring one. For someone of Caesar's lazy nature to make such a long round trip was quite the feat. "Thank you, Lord Caesar," Barker and his brothers said gratefully. "No need. I hope that in the future, the 5 of you will restore the Undying Warrior clan's reputation and fame." Right now, Caesar was feeling quite emotional. 5,000 years ago, when he had roamed the world with Armand, at risk of dying every single day, was the most unforgettable experience in his very long life. A night passed. The dawn came. Nothing was left of the campfire but ashes. Linley and his squad all got up to send Caesar off. "Lord Caesar, we will immediately return to a small town outside the prefectural city of Basel and settle down. When the time comes, you can just come find us there," Linley said. Linley knew that saint-level combatants could use their spiritual energy to search for people. As for deity-level combatants, as long as you gave them a general location, it was very easy for them to find someone. "Got it. Haha. Train hard, kiddos. I'll head off now." Caesar had returned to his usual lackadaisical, noisy mood. It was as though after that night had passed, he was back to his old self. Linley, the Barker siblings, Zisler, and the rest of the group all watched as Caesar's figure flew through the sky at high speed, disappearing past the horizon. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 38, The Church's Strategy. After Caesar left, Linley's group immediately headed off that morning in the direction of the provincial capital of Basel. This time, they weren't in too much of a hurry. But for the 5 Barker brothers, who were warriors of the 8th rank, the speed at which they traveled was still quite fast. By nightfall the next day, Linley's group arrived at a town near the provincial capital of Basel. This town is called Cloud Peaks Village. Zisler laughed as he introduced the town. "In the past, I spent over 10 years in this small town. The people here are fairly honest and simple, and they rarely interact with the outside world. Generally speaking, very few people come here. It is quite peaceful." Linley nodded. What they needed was a peaceful place. This time, when he fought against Stella, he had very nearly lost his life. Linley made up his mind that he would have to train until he was at least a warrior of the 9th rank in human form. That way, after being dragon formed, his power would be at the saint level. If I can reach the saint level, then a few years later after that, when I combine my insights and understanding of the principles of using the sword with my superior speed, even if I encounter Stella again, I'll still be able to flee, even if I can't win. Linley had a very good grasp of the strengths of this mutated dragon form he had. After devouring the blood as well as the draconic core of that armored razorback WIRM, Linley's mutated dragon form had inherited the strengths of the armored razorback WIRM, its speed and its defense. As the 5 Barker brothers stared at the peaceful town, their eyes were firm and resolute as well. "There will definitely come the day when I will get revenge for my wife and my son." Barker and his brothers also knew the state of affairs between Linley, Zisler, and the Radiant Church. Without question, this group was now under the leadership of Linley. This squad was completely composed of the enemies of the Radiant Church. On the west side of Cloud Peaks Village, Linley and his people engaged in a quick transaction with some local nobles, spending 10,000 gold coins to invite many laborers to come and erect a new residence. 10,000 gold coins, in a countryside town such as this, was enough to build a very lavish residence. The very next day, Linley brought Rebecca and Lena to this place. From this day forward, Linley's team all quietly took up residence here, focusing on their training. Rumble. The ocean waves crashed against the shore, throwing up countless sprays of foam. Above the jade-blue ocean waters, a human figure could be seen flying over at high speed. In a short period of time, the human figure arrived at the shore. It was Stella. Things have gotten complicated now. Stella was extremely frustrated. The Church had placed a very high degree of importance on obtaining those 5 bodies. Most likely, it would even be willing to give up one of its saint-level combatants or offend the O'Brien Empire to do so. In order to make sure nothing would go amiss, Haydns had even asked him, Stella, to handle it. But the result was... Stella stared at that distant, mighty radiant cathedral. Whoosh! Stella once more took to the air. The knights surrounding the radiant temple, upon seeing someone flying towards it, couldn't help but tense. Only after seeing that it was Stella did they calm down. Within the 9th floor of the radiant temple. Oh, Stella's back. Haydns had already seen through his window the sight of Stella flying back through the air. What's going on? Why did Stella come back alone? Haydns had a very bad premonition. Creak. Without any forewarning, the door to his room swung upon. Stella, as cold as thousand-year glacial ice, walked in. Stella, what happened? Where are they? Where are those 5 bodies of the 8th rank? Haydns was frowning and he asked his questions hurriedly. Stella shook his head. Your Holiness, acquiring those 5 bodies is no longer an option for us. What happened? Haydn's face sank. Those 5 bodies represented 5 peak stage saint-level combatants. Their importance to the Radiant Church couldn't be understated. Stella said in a low, somber voice, Your Holiness, originally, I was escorting those 5 brothers along the way. But when we entered the prefectural city of Daco, we ran into 2 people. Which 2 people? Haydns didn't believe there was someone capable of stopping Stella. Linley, Zisler. Stella's voice was extremely cold. Linley? Zisler. Haydns was startled. This Linley had disappeared for 3 years. He now appeared out of nowhere? Haydns couldn't help but think back to 3 years ago. Haydns truly did not wish to kill an ultimate genius such as Linley. But he had no other choice. However, 3 years ago, after Linley disappeared from Hesse City, no one ever found any trace of him again. But now, Linley was in cahoots with Zisler? Are you telling me that it was Linley who had rescued Zisler? Haydn's eyes lit up. Stella nodded. Yes. This Linley is already extremely powerful. Beneath the saint level, there's definitely no one who can match him. Only saint-level fighters or other extremely powerful fighters can defeat him. 6 combatants of the 9th rank. He can kill that many. Haydns found it rather hard to believe. Stella nodded somberly. Your Holiness, I must inform you that this Linley has 2 extremely powerful magical beasts. Both of them should be peak stage magical beasts of the 9th rank. And in addition, in terms of insight and understanding regarding fundamental principles, Linley is already nearing the peak stage saint level. Nearing the peak stage saint level. Haydns was very shocked. After all, the higher one's level of understanding was already at, the harder it would be to progress to the next level of understanding. There were people who would spend hundreds of years training yet still fail to improve whatsoever. Yes. Linley has already surpassed the level of using the force of the heavens. His current form of attack is extremely strange and unique. What's more, I have the feeling that right now, he has only mastered a small part of that level. Despite that, he was able to cause me a light wound. Stella couldn't help but reflect on how bizarre Linley's attack using the profound truths of the earth was. I've never encountered an attack such as that. That sort of attack wasn't based on battle chi, nor was it based purely on strength. It was, Stella paused, not quite able to find the right words to express it. Hearing Stella say such things, Haydns was very surprised. An attack which could cause a light wound to a peak stage saint-level combatant such as Stella was already, in and of itself, quite astonishing. What was so special about his attack? How would one defend against it? Haydns immediately asked. Stella nodded. His attack could pass through the exterior muscles and transmit its force directly into the internal organs. In other words, exterior layers of defense, no matter how powerful, are virtually useless. Oh! Haydn's frowned. This technique is a weapon aimed at attacking the internal organs of a person. In order to defend against this technique, the best method is to use battle chi to internally protect all of the body's internal organs, covering them all with a layer of battle chi. Actually, these vibrations which Linley's attack created, when passing through material barriers, would still lose a bit of power. But because this was a sort of vibrating wave, no matter how high your external defense was, it would still transmit its power through your defense. However, if the opponent's organs had a highly dense, concentrated layer of protective battle chi over it, the vibrational waves would be slowly weakened by the battle chi. By the time it reached the internal organs, its threat level would be rather low. There's no way to completely defend against this sort of attack. The only option is to use a high amount of battle chi to ameliorate its effects. Stella sighed in praise. And, again, I have the sense that Linley has just recently begun to understand this technique. In the future, his attack will most likely be even more powerful. This can probably be classified as the strangest type of attack I have ever seen. Stella had a very high opinion of this technique. This made Haydn's all the more worried. This Linley must be killed. Haydn's was now truly starting to grow worried. If Linley was to be permitted to continue to develop like this, he would pose a true threat to the Radiant Church. Continue. I'm sure the two of them weren't enough to stop you. Haydn said in a somber voice. Stella nodded. Indeed. Both Linley and Zisler are only of the 9th rank. But just as I was about to kill Linley, a person appeared out of nowhere. Caesar. The king of killers, Caesar. Caesar. Haydn said doubtfully. He shouldn't be willing to dare fight face to face against the Radiant Church directly. Wrong. He dares. Stella sighed. Caesar has reached the deity level. Reached the deity level. These words were like a lightning bolt slamming into Haydn's mind, making him momentarily feel dizzy. Yet another deity-level combatant had appeared in the Yulon continent. Deity level. Haydn stared at Stella. Yes. Deity level. Stella nodded again. Haydn's was silent for a long moment. What did Caesar say? Haydn said calmly. Caesar said, in the future, our Radiant Church definitely must not have any designs on those 5 brothers. Otherwise, he will shed all pretense of cordiality with us and slaughter his way to the Sacred Isle. Stella's words were like a hammer to Haydn's heart. These 5 vessels of the 8th rank symbolized 5 peak stage saint-level angels. This was too heartbreaking. Haydn's didn't want to accept it. He didn't want to accept it. Why would Caesar say such a thing? Haydn's eyes narrowed. Based on my understanding of Caesar, he's a man who has no interest in power or authority. He enjoys living a carefree life. He wouldn't spend a single iota of effort on a stranger. This was indeed the case. Caesar truly didn't care about the lives or deaths of others. For a lazy person such as Caesar to be willing to go this far. Haydn's eyebrows suddenly shot up, and his eyes lit up. I understand now. Haydn sighed. What's the reason, Your Holiness? Stella asked. Haydn sighed yet again. In the records that the Church has regarding Caesar, there was information regarding, in the chaotic era of 5,000 years ago, Caesar's experiences alongside his good friend Armand. The people whom Caesar truly values have always been the descendants of Armand. The undying warriors. Stella began to understand as well. Right. I've always been very surprised how 5 bodies of the 8th rank could suddenly appear here in the Yulon continent. But now, it makes sense. Undying warriors. The most physically powerful of the 4 supreme warriors. Haydn's was silent for a long period of time. His thoughts regained their normal clarity. We can't touch those 5 siblings. That is without question. No matter what, they couldn't afford to offend a deity-level expert. Linley's level of talent is simply terrifying. We simply cannot allow him to live. Haydns looked at Stella. Stella, Caesar didn't say that he would go to war against the Radiant Church for Linley's sake, did he? Stella nodded. Haydns smiled confidently. That's more like him. Although he likes stone sculptures, he definitely wouldn't go to total war against the Radiant Church for the sake of a master sculptor. Caesar was an arrogant loner. There were very few people for whom he would really be willing to go all out. And Linley was not one of them. Stella, go and get some rest. When you leave, order someone to have Lyndon Landan come. Haydns ordered. Yes, Your Holiness. Roughly 10 minutes later, the sound of knocking at the door. Enter. Haydns said calmly. A tall and beautiful woman with a head of silver hair walked in. Without question, she was a woman so beautiful as to make any man go wild. But that icy beauty of hers was the type that would make others not dare to approach her. Your Holiness. Lyndon bowed. Haydns immediately issued his order. Tomorrow, take 5 angels of the 9th rank with you and head directly to the O'Brien Empire. The goal for this mission is to kill Linley. In a while, I will have a scroll containing information about Linley delivered to you. Yes, Your Holiness. Lyndon was a radiant angel who had descended into a body of the 6th rank. Although it was quite hard to find bodies of the 7th and 8th ranks, bodies of the 6th rank were quite common. Thus, the Radiant Church had quite a few angels of the 9th rank. Remember, you must kill Linley, no matter the cost. Haydns instructed yet again. Lyndon started, then expressed assent. Angels possessed astonishing power. Even the weakest 2-winged angels had early-stage saint-level power. Lyndon's true power was very powerful, however, bound by the restrictions of their vessels, they weren't able to put them on full display. But if they were to go all out, they were totally capable of unleashing their saint-level power in exchange for their lives. Most importantly, 6 angels were capable of forming the legendary angel battle formation. With the 6 of them joining forces, even an early-stage saint-level expert would most likely be killed, to say nothing of Linley. Go. Haydns said calmly. They were just 6 angels of the 9th rank, after all. For the sake of killing Linley, he'd be willing to sacrifice 6 more if necessary. After all, Linley's natural talent had truly terrified Haydns. He cannot be allowed to continue to grow. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 39, Time Passing Slowly. The O'Brien Empire restricted the worship of other religions within its borders, and so the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows were forced to keep their forces in hiding. If and when their forces were discovered, the O'Brien Empire would mercilessly stamp them out. This attitude of the O'Brien Empire had caused the Radiant Church to never have the chance to expand its influence within the Empire's borders. In important places such as the imperial capital or in the provincial capitals, the Radiant Church still managed to place quite a few forces in hiding, but in prefectural cities, they would have at most a few dozen people. As for those ordinary cities, some places had a few people, others had none. And the towns? No need to even mention them. The density of their web of influence wasn't very high. Thus, the Radiant Church's forces which had been sent to locate Linley couldn't find any trace of him. They had no idea where this Linley had run off to. Even though they didn't know where Linley was hiding, the Lyndon's team of 6 experts still departed from the Sacred Isle and headed towards the O'Brien Empire. Outside Northwest Administrative Province's provincial capital of Basel. Cloud Peaks Village. Linley, Zisler, Barker, and his brothers, Rebecca, and Lena were all living here quietly. Aside from their training, Rebecca and Lena spent their time making sure Linley and the others were all fed. The explanation they gave to the local villagers was that Linley was a noble. Zisler was his housekeeper, and the 5 Barker brothers were his guards. Linley's team was located in the western side of the village, several hundred meters away from any other residences. Big sis, today the skeleton I summoned was so cute. It looked so silly. Rebecca and Lena were on their way back from the local market, carrying baskets of fresh vegetables. Aside from their training, they spent much of their time cooking. Rebecca, don't always waste your time playing around. After summoning a skeleton, release it back. You are wasting too much time playing around with skeletons. Lena was somewhat unhappy. Rebecca was too undisciplined. Every day, she would play around with and tease the skeletal warriors she summoned. I know, big sis. I'll catch up to you soon, Rebecca said in a low voice. Her sister was already capable of summoning zombies. It must be said that both Rebecca and Lena were quite talented. They were progressing quite rapidly in the arts of necromantic magic. The two of them walked to an empty spot of land. Currently, the manor which Linley had designed was still in the construction phase. And thus, Linley had erected a series of wooden cabins for them to live in for now. Big brother Linley's training method is so weird, Rebecca murmured. Right now, Linley was wielding the adamantine heavy sword in one hand and the blood-violet God's word in the other. In Linley's hands, the adamantine heavy sword danced about as though it was totally weightless. But blood-violet was the opposite, it seemed to carry 1,000 tons of force with each blow. Wielding something heavy as though it were light, wielding something light as though it were heavy. Linley had a hint of a smile on his lips. Regardless of whether he was using blood-violet or the adamantine heavy sword, his level of understanding could be applied to both. For example, the impose level could be used with virtually any sort of attack. Saber, sword, staff, rod, fists, or kicks. Impose could be used with any of these. This is why using it could be described as calling upon the force of the heavens and the earth. As for the level of wielding something heavy as though it were light, there was no way one could use it on the blood-violet God's word, because this sword was already very light. After pondering for over 10 days while seated meditatively on the floor, Linley suddenly became aware of how ponderous and all-encompassing the wind which blew through the skies really was. Finally, he had his flash of insight. The wind was invisible. When it was gentle, it could be like the kiss of a lover. But when it was aroused into a vicious storm, it could split mountains and shatter stones. Wielding something light as though it were heavy, Linley hacked out with the blood-violet God's word. The nearly invisible, diaphanous sword let out a thunder-like sound as out of nowhere, a tornado suddenly appeared. The wind-style single combat spell, Dimensional Edge, is an extremely powerful one-on-one magical attack spell. The power of the Dimensional Edge spell is so great that it can hack apart the dimensional walls itself. Then, would it be possible to duplicate the effects of the Dimensional Edge through sword techniques? Linley considered this question. The correct roads would all lead to the same destination, despite the path. The level above impose, when using the adamantine heavy sword, was achieved by Linley through using his insights regarding the laws of the earth. As Linley saw it, with regards to the blood-violet God's word, to surpass the impose level, he would have to utilize his understanding of the laws of the wind. Only by selecting the correct avenue of training would one not be led astray. Right now, Linley was quietly considering which avenue of training he should embark on. But the fundamental laws of the universe were very profound and very abstruse. To understand them was very difficult. Fortunately, Linley has exceptional elemental affinity for both wind elemental essence as well as earth elemental essence, and thus was able to reach a very high level of attunement with nature. But despite that, without multiple years of training and time, it would be virtually impossible to make much progress. Swish! A blur slashed through the air, then landed behind Linley. Lord Caesar! Linley turned his head, then immediately paid his respects. Caesar laughed and nodded. Where are Barker and his brothers? They are training in the empty space behind their room. Lord Caesar, please follow me. Smiling, Linley headed towards the area behind the room, but as he did, Caesar suddenly stared at Linley's feet in astonishment. Although on the surface, Linley appeared to be no different from normal people, but what sort of person was Caesar? How could he not tell? He could clearly sense that Linley was walking in an extremely rhythmic manner, seeming to carry with each step a certain vibration. In truth, what had happened was that Linley had immersed himself in his silent training for so long that even when he walked, his steps would also embody the throbbing pulse of the earth. He truly is talented, Caesar praised in his heart. After walking for a short distance, Caesar saw Barker and his siblings. The 5 of them were in an area filled with countless giant boulders the size of houses, which they were using as part of their weight training. The entire area was suffused with an earth-colored layer of light. Haarg. The muscles on the bodies of the Barker brothers were rippling and gleaming, with the veins sticking out like snakes on their bodies, making them look extremely powerful and mighty. Lord Caesar. Upon seeing Caesar, Barker and his siblings immediately stopped their training. You 5 fellows really do train hard, eh? Caesar quirked his lips in a grin. What sort of effectiveness are you seeing from your training? The 4th of the 5 siblings, Boonbuletinen, said excitedly, in the past, when we were training, we didn't sense much improvement. But now that we are training in this supergravity field, both our muscles as well as our internal organs are strengthening and improving. The area under the effects of a supergravity field would see the local gravity increase dramatically. Higher gravity could benefit the muscles, the organs, and the entire body. Excellent. I made a long round trip, and brought back with me the secret manual I had copied by hand all those years ago. With a flip of his hand, a rather thin book appeared in front of Caesar. Barker and his brothers stared at this manual, their eyes shining. This is the secret undying manual. The 5th brother, Gates, stared at it with wide, hungry eyes. Take it. Caesar began to laugh. The 5th brother, Gates, snatched it over, his hand moving like a blur. He immediately opened the manual and began to read, with the other 4 squeezed together like 5 giant bears, craning their necks over and staring at it with eyes as big and wide as ox eyes. This spectacle was actually quite funny. Ha ha. Caesar began to laugh, while a hint of a smile was on Linley's lips as well. Caesar looked at Linley. In a low voice, he warned, Linley, I can tell that these 5 brothers are just like their ancestors. They are rather boorish and unrefined. If they are to travel alone, most likely they will be easily duped and cheated by others. I hope you can lead and guide them. Lord Caesar, don't worry. Linley assented. During this period of association with the 5 Barker brothers, Linley had discovered that these 5 men clearly differentiated between enmity and benevolence. They were very straightforward and didn't play any mind games. They'd curse out whoever they wanted to curse and wouldn't hide any of their thoughts. Linley actually rather liked this sort of temperament. It was genuine. The 5 of them, upon training in accordance with the secret undying manual, will improve at a very rapid speed. It won't be difficult at all for them to reach the 9th rank within a few years. Caesar sighed to himself. Turning his head, he glanced at Linley. This Linley is most likely worthy of my trust. As far as Caesar was concerned, Linley couldn't even come close to comparing with the 5 Barker brothers in terms of importance. After all, these 5 were the descendants of the closest friend Caesar had ever made. As for Linley, he was nothing more than a sculptor whom Caesar, a statue aficionado, rather liked. Towards Linley, he only felt appreciation. But towards the 5 brothers, he felt the sort of doting love one might feel towards one's grandchildren. Soon after, Caesar left again. After about half a year had passed, the manor was completed, and Linley and his team took up residence within, beginning a long period of quiet training. Aside from Caesar, perhaps the only person who knew that Linley was living there was Yale. Yale had long ago set up a system of sending someone each month to provide news regarding the Radiant Church, basic news regarding the Yulon continent as a whole, as well as information about Warden. Although they were living in this village, Linley thus was still kept very well informed about the affairs of the Yulon continent. Within a forest on the west side of Cloud Peaks village, Linley was training by himself. 3 years. They had spent 3 full years within the quiet Cloud Peaks village. During these 3 years, the Radiant Church's forces had been searching fruitlessly for them. As for Linley, he had totally immersed himself within his training, and had advanced quite rapidly as well. The wind rose, blowing the dead leaves to the ground. Linley raised his head to look at the sky. Very high up above him, a blue windhawk was flying with wings spread. A hint of a smile appeared on Linley's lips, and he suddenly thrust his adamantine heavy sword into the air. Boom! Originating from Linley's adamantine heavy sword, a series of faint cracks in space itself could be seen as a vibrational wave burst forward up into the sky at an incredibly high speed. In the blink of an eye, the vibrating waves had traversed nearly 1,000 meters. Boom! The body of the blue-winged hawk, a magical beast of the 5th rank, shuddered, then began to collapse from the skies. I've finally reached the level of the 100-layered waves. Linley's eyes were filled with a hint of confidence. If today, that Stella were to be struck by me again, he most likely wouldn't get off with just a light wound this time. Profound truths of the earth 3-layered waves. Profound truths of the earth 10-layered waves. Profound truths of the earth 100-layered waves. After spending 3 years, Linley had already reached an extremely high level of understanding with regards to the profound truths of the earth, and his attack power was now very terrifying as well. Within 1,000 meters distance, he could kill a magical beast of the 5th rank. Most likely, even an early-stage saint-level combatant would be hard-pressed to accomplish such a task. After all, battle chi, when being transmitted through the air, would slowly be weakened by air resistance. When the distance reached a certain length, the power of the attack would be almost negligibly weak as well. Compared to battle chi, these vibrational waves would still be weakened when passing through the air, but much, much less than battle chi would be. When using the 3-layered waves technique in the past, Linley could only kill a magical beast of the 5th rank at a distance of roughly 10 meters. Any farther away, and the waves wouldn't be powerful enough to kill 5th-ranked magical beasts. But upon reaching the 10-layered waves stage of the technique, Linley could kill a 5th-ranked magical beast within 100 meters. But the 100-layered waves was even more powerful. Even 3,000 meters wouldn't prove a problem, much less 1,000. This was the true ace in Linley's sleeve. Unless he was in a dangerous situation, Linley wouldn't willingly use this technique. But how to break past the barrier for the profound truths of the wind? With a flip of his hand, Linley returned the adamantine heavy sword to its sheath, then drew out the blood-violet God's Word. Over the past 3 years, Linley had gained some insight regarding the 4th level of using the blood-violet, the profound truths of the wind. But his insights were only limited to the simplest level, the rippling wind technique. This shouldn't be the case. Wind-style magic isn't just fast and flexible. It should also have extremely powerful one-on-one attack abilities. How, then, can one execute the dimensional edge through sword attacks? Linley had a certain feeling that the effects of the dimensional edge spell absolutely could be displayed through the blood-violet God's Word. But it was as though the road to that level was covered by a dense fog, leading Linley to have no idea where he should try to make the breakthrough. Big Brother Linley, Big Brother Linley. Rebecca's clear voice rang out from outside the forest. Linley grabbed the blue-winged hawk by the neck and headed out of the forest with the hawk in his hands. This hawk would serve as part of dinner. Big Brother Linley, your letter just came. Rebecca smiled radiantly at Linley. Oh. Each month, a new letter would come. Linley tossed the blue-winged hawk over. Rebecca, our dinner tonight will be this blue-winged hawk. As he spoke, Linley accepted the letter and tore it open. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 40, Undying Warrior Transformation. Reading the information in this letter regarding Warden, Linley couldn't help but start to frown. Warden has registered for next year's selection process to become an honorary disciple of the War Gods College. Linley was rather puzzled and also rather dissatisfied. Why does he want to enter the War Gods College? Even the personally taught disciples of the War God at most reach the saint level. What, a dragon blood warrior can't reach the saint level on his own? Linley knew very well that entering the War Gods College wouldn't have much of an impact on their development. After all, Dragon Blood warriors were absolutely guaranteed to eventually become peak stage saint level combatants. The supreme warriors were nothing to trifle with. As for the deity level, despite the passage of so many years since the war god O'Brien had founded the empire, not a single one of his honorary disciples or personally taught disciples had reached the deity level, right? The deity level wasn't something that could simply be taught by a deity level combatant. How could one's understanding of the laws and principles of the world be taught? Everyone has their own insights. The road others have taken might not be suited to one's self. Linley was somewhat unhappy with his younger brother's decision to register an attempt to become an honorary disciple of the War Gods College. However, his younger brother had grown up. I can't blame Warden for making his own choices. Linley continued to read. At the very end, a hint of laughter appeared on Linley's face. Haha, so this kid, Warden, haha. The letter Yale had ordered to be delivered explained in detail the reason why Warden had registered for the chance to be selected as an honorary disciple of the War Gods College. The primary reason was because of the seventh princess of the Empire. I hope that Warden will have a perfect, unbroken love life. At the very least, it must not be like mine was. Linley blessed his younger brother silently. Indeed, the reason Warden wanted to become an honorary disciple of the War Gods College was because of her. Given that the master of the War Gods College was the founding emperor of the O'Brien Empire, War God O'Brien, upon entering the War Gods College, it would be much easier for Warden to wed an imperial princess. After reading the letter, a flame emerged from Linley's hands. Crackle. The letter was reduced to ash. Alongside Rebecca, Linley made his way back to their manor. His days of peaceful training continued. Linley continued to keep an eye out for Warden's affairs. According to the reports in the letters, the seventh princess of the Empire was an extremely beautiful girl, and she was also very adorable and kind. She was also doted on by her imperial father, which was why she had many pursuers. Several of them had higher social statuses and rankings than Warden. However, the seventh princess of the Empire was on very good relations with Warden. She would often go out to play and joke around with him. The next year, the competition to join the War Gods College began. This was also the fourth year for Linley and his squad here at Cloud Peak Village. Big brother Linley, here's your letter. Rebecca once more delivered a letter to him. Linley immediately opened it and began to read. Based on the timing of events, this letter should have information regarding the grand competition. Given his younger brother's ability, he should be able to succeed. Oh? He failed. Reading the contents of the letter, Linley frowned. The competition to become an honorary disciple of the War Gods College had resulted in a young man named Bloomer Bulletin Lumo capturing that position. This sort of competition wasn't the type of competition where the last man standing would be given the position. It was a series of competitions resulting in a total of 10 finalists. From within these 10 finalists, either the war god himself, or one of his personally taught disciples, would select the next honorary disciple. Warden had indeed become one of the 10 finalists, but in the end, the War Gods College had selected Bloomer. Yet another genius. Linley was very surprised. Bloomer was currently 32 years old, yet had just entered the 9th rank as a warrior. This astonishing natural talent was indeed quite incredible. But in terms of talent, Warden should still be somewhat superior to him. This year, Warden should be 21 years old, but he has already entered the 8th rank as a warrior. Linley had learned just a month ago that Warden had entered the 8th rank as a warrior. A 21-year-old warrior of the 8th rank was very astonishing as well. HRM. Reading Bloomer's background information, something caught Linley's eye. Bloomer's older brother is actually the prodigy sword saint, Olivier. Linley was quite surprised. Olivier was that genius who, immediately upon entering the saint level, defeated the stellar sword saint, Dylan. It wasn't impossible for an early stage saint level to defeat a saint level who had entered the saint level many years ago. What it required was a higher level of understanding and insight. For example, Linley. Right now, his level of understanding and insight was already at the peak of the saint level. Only, because his physical strength and battle chi was too low, it was impossible for him to enter the saint level at this time. As soon as he reached the required amount of strength and battle chi, he would enter the saint level. This was why Linley now spent a large majority of his time training his battle chi. He wanted to break through to the 9th rank as quickly as possible. I wonder how Warden is currently feeling. Linley wondered to himself. That buck-toothed, chubby-cheeked kid from years ago was now an adult. Linley was truly filled with love and affection towards Warden. The Emperor of the O'Brien Empire, if this letter is accurate, should already know that Warden is the descendant of the Dragon Blood Warrior clan. Given Warden's power, he clearly is capable of dragon forming. As a Dragon Blood Warrior, the Imperial clan would not be disgraced by Warden marrying the Emperor's daughter. Actually, Linley didn't really feel much respect or fear towards the so-called royal clans or imperial clans. The only thing he feared and respected was truly powerful experts, such as the War God, the High Priest, the King of Killers, and the two kings of the Forest of Darkness and the mountain range of magical beasts. The people who stood at the pinnacle of the world. Understanding and insight was important. Physical strength was important as well. To Linley at his current level in particular, improving his battle chi and physical strength was something he desperately needed. When using the same technique of wielding something light as though it was heavy, the force of Linley's attacks were dozens of times weaker than that of a saint-level combatant. The same was true for the profound truths of the earth. At this time, Linley perhaps could seriously injure a saint-level combatant if he caught him off guard, but if a saint-level combatant were to use the technique, he definitely could cause the opponent to instantly perish. The three vibrational waves were the same, but the strength of the vibrations was just on totally different levels. The vibrational power unleashed by a saint-level combatant would be 10 times higher. The basics. Linley sat in the meditative position on his bed, all the muscles on his body twitching as though countless worms were crawling beneath his skin. The veins on Linley's forehead were bulging outwards as well. The azure blackish battle chi was rapidly circulating through Linley's arteries, each time bringing with them the unique, nourishing, strengthening effects of the dragon blood battle chi. Within his Danshan region, the battle chi had already achieved a very high degree of density. That liquefied battle chi was constantly swirling about at a slow pace in the middle of his Danshan. Whew! Linley let out a long breath, and when he did, a white mist spat forth from his mouth in a line as flat as a sharp sword. Who knows how long it will take to advance from the peak of the 8th rank to the 9th rank. In the past 4 years, Linley had managed to reach the peak stage of the 8th rank. But as always when it came to training, the most critical juncture was also the one which took the most time. Right now, Linley, when transformed, was still just at the peak of the 9th rank. As soon as he broke through to the 9th rank, Linley would be an early-stage saint-level combatant when dragon formed. The peak of the 9th rank to the early-stage saint level was a true transformation. There was an enormous difference between the two levels. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Suddenly, a bout of wild laughter erupted from outside the room. Linley stood up from his bed, puzzled. Why are the Barker brothers so happy, this early in the morning? At this time, the sky was just barely lit, and the world was covered by a thick fog. Ordinary people wouldn't even be able to see someone 5 meters away, all they would see was the fog. Big Brother Barker, why are you guys ranting like this early in the morning? We sisters need our sleep. Rebecca called out unhappily. Linley's vision was far stronger than that of ordinary people's. At a glance, he could tell that the eldest of the 5 brothers, Barker, was so happy he couldn't control himself. Big bro, why are you so happy? The other 4 siblings all came out of their rooms as well. I succeeded. I've broken through to the 9th rank. Barker excitedly said to his 4 brothers. Haha, when transformed, I can finally reach the early stage of the saint level. The Undying Warrior's transformation was very similar to that of the Dragon Blood Warriors in this respect. If in their normal, human form, they were of the 9th rank, once transformed, they would be at the saint level. Early stage saint level. Zisler, who had just walked out of his own room, was shocked as well. Linley, the sisters, and the 4 brothers of Barker were both stunned as well. Linley's eyes were shining. "Barker, you've really broken through," Linley said with uncontrollable excitement. Barker nodded. "Yes, Lord. I truly have broken through." In the past, the Barker brothers all addressed Linley as Lord Linley. Now that they were in the village, everyone was pretending that Linley was a noble and the 5 brothers were his guards, so naturally, they continued to address Linley as Lord. After 4 years, everyone had gotten used to this form of address. After all, the 5 Barker brothers were very heroic, blunt figures. Their minds weren't nearly as agile as Linley's and Zisler's. The decisions of this group were primarily made by Linley. "Let's go to the empty space in the west. Let us get a good look at your current power," Linley immediately said. Everyone excitedly rushed out of the manor towards the empty space in the west side. Because the sun wasn't totally up yet, most of the people in the village were still sleeping. Not a single person could be seen. "As soon as he transforms, he'll be saint level." "Master, how long will it take before I'll be able to break through?" The Black Cloud Panther, Haru, said with some frustration to Linley. Haru had already been at the peak of the 9th rank for a long time. "Gruel!" Bebe growled angrily at him. "Haru, don't think I don't understand what your sly intentions are. You have designs on that saint-level mage eyesight core the boss has." Linley laughed as he shook his head. For a magical beast of the peak of the 9th rank to break through to the saint level usually required them to make the breakthrough on their own. But of course, if they were to consume a saint-level mage eyesight core of the same elemental type as their own, there was a very high chance that they would be able to suddenly break through. But of course, there was a chance of failure as well. "Gruel!" Haru growled at Bebe as well. "Bebe, I'm not like you. You've been growing stronger this entire time, during the past 4 years. But I've stopped." Exactly what sort of magical beast Bebe was, no one knew. But Bebe was definitely a type of magical beast whose natural talent was even more terrifyingly high than Black Cloud Panthers. Although 4 years ago, Bebe was roughly on par with Haru, in truth, Bebe was still growing and developing. After these past 4 years, Bebe at his current level of power could easily devastate the Black Cloud Panther. In terms of speed or defense, Bebe was extremely terrifying. Most likely, even a saint-level combatant would have to spend quite a bit of effort to kill Bebe. Linley's heart was filled with appreciation. 4 years ago, Bebe's defense was already frighteningly high. Now, it was so high as to be unspeakable. "Haru, that saint-level mage eyesight core the boss has is darkness element, but you are dual element, wind and darkness. If you eat it, the chance of failure is too high. It isn't worth it. I'm a pure darkness element magical beast. When I reach the end of my development, the chances of me making a breakthrough after consuming it is much higher than yours." Bebe said arrogantly. "What, you aren't happy? You want a taste of my claws?" Haru let out a growl, then fell silent. Bebe arrogantly stuck up his little head. Haru, this extremely arrogant magical beast, had been thoroughly cowed by Bebe. Right at this time, Barker was about to transform. "Bebe, knock it off." Linley was focusing on Barker, who stood in front of everyone. "Haha, everyone, watch carefully." Barker was extremely excited. With a popping sound, the muscles on his body began to constantly crackle and pop. The muscles on Barker's body began to wildly expand, while at the same time, the color of his skin and muscles began to transform as well. Thunderous crackles. Barker, originally 2.2 meters tall, had now expanded in size along with his swelling muscles. In the blink of an eye, Barker had transformed into a terrifyingly large and powerful-looking giant who was 3 meters tall. Barker's entire skin had turned into a light green color. His skin and muscles seemed like they were made from stone, and those enormous, defined muscles clearly contained an unimaginable amount of power. Just by looking at him, one could tell this. And then, atop his light green skin, a layer of white, marble-like armor suddenly began to appear, eventually covering his entire body aside from his face. Even his head was covered by a white marble helmet. This so-called armor and helmet was grown from his very body. It was terrifyingly odd. And then, Barker suddenly rose into the air, flying in a circle before settling down and hovering in mid-air. Haha, the Saint level! This is the power of the Saint level! Barker excitedly smashed his two gigantic fists together. When he did, the air itself rippled from the force of that blow. This was a Saint-level Undying Warrior. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 41, The Power of the 100-Layered Waves. Surrounded by the foggy mist, Linley, the Archmagus Necromancer Zisler, Rebecca, Lena, Barker's four brothers, Bebe and Haru all stared at the Saint-level Undying Warrior in front of them with a mixture of astonishment and delight. Those powerful, muscular arms and legs. Just by looking at the Saint-level Undying Warrior, one could almost physically see the warrior's aura of power and might. In particular, that white, marble-like armor made Barker look as though he truly was a war machine. Although the other four siblings were 2.2 meters tall, compared to their big brother Barker, they now seemed like underage children. They only reached Barker's chest in height. The Saint level. Big bro, how do you feel? The eyes of Hazer, the third brother, were shining. Standing in mid-air, the Saint-level Undying Warrior emitted a deep rumbling noise, and then allowed his voice to reverberate through the air. The feeling is of power. Unbelievable power. What's more, I can fly easily, as though it were a natural ability. Most Saint-level combatants needed to reach a certain level of understanding and insight to fly. But the four Supreme Warriors were different. As long as they had enough power, the exalted, mysterious bloodlines of the four Supreme Warriors would allow them to fly as though it were second nature to them. It was similar to how some Saint-level magical beasts would immediately and naturally know how to fly upon reaching their age of adulthood and maturity. This was an innate gift. Haha, second bro, third bro, fourth bro, fifth brother, don't be too stressed out. All of you are at the peak of the 8th rank, right? With just a single extra step, you'll be at the 9th rank, and by then, after transforming, you will be like me. Barker tried to keep his sonorous voice quiet, but he couldn't help but express his excitement. Seeing this, Linley also felt great excitement and joy on behalf of these 5 brothers, who were supreme warriors like him. The Barker brothers had trained for much longer than Linley had. When they had been captured and then escorted by Stella, they had already been over 30 years old. At that time, they had already entered the 8th rank for quite some time. They were warriors of the 8th rank who had never trained using the secret Undying Manual. As soon as they did, it was only natural that they then developed at an astonishingly fast pace. After all, the power of one's body was what determined how much battle chi could be generated, and those powerful bodies of theirs, the 5 of them had all reached the peak of the 8th rank. And today, Barker had broken through the last gate and reached the 9th rank. An Undying Warrior of the 9th rank in human form, an early stage saint level after transforming. Breaking through from the peak of the 8th rank to the 9th rank isn't hard, but it isn't easy either. I might still need several years. The 5th brother, Gates, pursed his lips. It was hard to say when one would break through to another level. For example, Linley was currently at the peak of the 8th rank as well. He might break through tomorrow, or he might break through in 3 to 4 years. Barker suddenly looked at Linley. With excitement, he said, "Lord Linley, use that profound truths of the earth technique to attack me again. You want to give it a try?" Linley laughed with resignation. One of the reasons why Linley was able to make the 5 of them willingly address him as Lord and accept him as their leader was because Linley had totally outclassed the 5 of them in terms of martial force. In recent years, the 5 brothers had trained in accordance with the secret Undying Manual, and after transforming into Undying Warriors, they had sparred a few times with Linley. Undying Warriors did indeed possess an astonishingly high defense. But the strange vibrational attacks of the profound truths of the earth were able to pierce through the armor and the muscles of the Undying Warriors, suffering only a slight loss of power before attacking their internal organs. At that time, Linley had only used his weakest triple-layered waves against them, and at a reduced level of power. But despite that, the 5 brothers still suffered some light injuries. The profound truths of the earth is an extremely dangerous technique. Barker, if you really want to give it a try, then it has to be like it was in the past. I'll start at the weakest level of power, then slowly ramp it up one level at a time. I don't dare use my most powerful attack at the very start. Linley said sincerely. Profound truths of the earth 100-layered waves. The power of this attack was dozens of times greater than the triple-layered waves. According to Linley's calculations, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to use this attack to kill an early-stage saint-level combatant. Don't worry, Lord. Let's do this one step at a time. I won't try to show off too much. Barker's deep voice rumbled out. Fine, then. Linley nodded. You are already at the saint level. I'll transform into a dragon blood warrior as well. Linley removed his upper body clothes, then allowed his body to become fully covered with black draconic scales, with the sharp spikes coming out as well. In the blink of an eye, Linley had totally transformed into his dragon blood warrior form. Each time I see his lordship's eyes, my heart trembles. The 5th brother, Gates, said in a low voice. The other 3 nodded. The dark golden eyes Linley had inherited from the armored razorback Wyrm were cold and utterly remorseless. Barker, first, I'll use my fist to execute the profound truths of the earth. If you can totally withstand it, then I'll switch to using the adamantine heavy sword. Linley said in a deep voice. Through using his fists, he could still put the power of the profound truths of the earth on full display. Only, in terms of actual force, it would be about half of that which the adamantine heavy sword could generate. All right, come. Don't take it too easy on me. Barker was full of excitement as well. Right now, his blue eyes had a hint of gold in them. Launching off from the ground, Linley shot upwards like a vicious blur towards the mid-air Barker. 10-layered waves. Linley let out a growl. Like a thunderbolt, his right fist smashed through the air, landing directly against the white armor covering Barker's chest. But Barker felt nothing at all as that seemingly titanic punch slammed against his body. Boom! 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 The strange attack penetrated through his armor and his powerful muscles, then pierced through the undying battle chi surrounding his organs. Finally, like a warhammer, it smashed against his heart and his other organs. His internal organs all quivered. But then, the undying battle chi in Barker's body once more covered his organs. Haha, I'm fine. Again. Barker's eyes were shining. Linley's punch using the 10-layered waves had actually not been able to injure him at all. The only thing he felt was a slight tremble from his internal organs. Linley nodded. Indeed, if a saint-level undying warrior, with their incredibly strong defense, wasn't able to take an empty-handed 10-layered waves blow, then undying warriors wouldn't be worthy of being praised as the supreme warriors with the greatest level of defense. Fine. I'll begin to gradually increase my attack power. Linley didn't waste any more words, immediately beginning to attack. Barker knew very well that the weak point of the undying warriors lay in their low speed. In truth, even if he were to engage in a genuine battle against Linley, given Linley's superior speed, Linley could land one punch after another on him. The result wouldn't be too different from what he was doing right now, just standing there and letting Linley hit him. The number of vibrations each blow caused slowly began to increase. From 10 layers, to 20 layers, to 30 layers. His defense truly is powerful. He's even managed to withstand 90 layers of vibrations. Linley's eyes were shining. He immediately called out loudly, "Barker, prepare to take my most powerful bare-handed blow." Barker waited for him there in mid-air. Barker had to admit that just then, the 90-layered waves had caused him some injury. But due to the astonishing healing power of his undying battle chi, he had already pretty much recovered from that light injury. 100-layered waves. Like a tempest, Linley shot into the air, his fist drawing closer and closer to Barker before finally smashing against his chest. Boom! 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 Barker felt as though he had been smashed by an enormous meteor as both his body as well as his internal organs began to vibrate with a strength which he had never experienced before. 100 vibrations occurred in the blink of an eye. Barker felt his internal organs shudder, and he could already taste blood in his mouth. He wanted to swallow it, but then another stream of blood was forced into his mouth by his organs. He could no longer repress it, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Big bro!" Barker's 4 brothers immediately ran over in astonishment. "Barker!" Linley was surprised as well. "I'm fine." After spitting out that mouthful of blood, Barker actually felt much better. "I'm not injured too badly. My undying battle chi should be able to totally cure this sort of minor wound in just 3 days or so." Barker looked at Linley with admiration. "Lord, in terms of understanding and insight, you are on a much higher level than me. Although my body is more powerful than yours, I'm still unable to defeat you." The Linley of 4 years ago definitely wouldn't have been a match for the current Barker. But over the course of these 4 years, Linley had deepened his understanding of the profound truths of the earth. By enhancing his original triple-layered waves to the current level of 100-layered waves, he had increased his attack power by several dozen times. "If I were to use my adamantine heavy sword, the power of the 100-layered waves would be doubled," Linley said to himself. The power of the profound truths of the earth, when executed by a heavy sword, was extremely great. If I used all of my power with the adamantine heavy sword and executed the 100-layered waves attack, I could most likely heavily injure or even kill an early-stage saint-level undying warrior. Linley was now very certain. The defensive abilities of the undying warriors were legendary. If even an early-stage saint-level undying warrior was unable to take this attack, how could an ordinary early-stage saint-level combatant do so? Any early-stage saint-level who encounters the 100-layered waves attack will most likely die. Linley felt extremely confident. Raw power and level of insight were mutually supportive. Compared to 4 years ago, Linley's raw power had not increased much. But in terms of the effectiveness of his level of understanding, he had improved by dozens of times. An ordinary peak stage combatant of the 9th rank, upon reaching the saint level, would generally only increase in power by around 10 times or so. "Barker," Zisler said with a smile. "In terms of raw power, the bodies of the 5 of you are not one whit weaker than Linley's. Your body, Barker, is in fact stronger than Linley's. But in terms of insight and understanding, you are too inferior. Linley has already told you that his levels of understanding can be divided into 4 levels, ordinary attacks being the first, wielding something heavy as though it were light as the second, impose as the third, and the profound truths of the earth as the fourth. But the 5 of you are still at the most basic level of using raw force. Your level of understanding and insight is far too low." Barker deactivated his transformation, returning to his normal appearance. "In the past 4 years, Lord Linley has already taught us much. But we 5 brothers truly," Barker laughed awkwardly. "Old man, do you think we are geniuses? His lordship is around 25 years old, but has already reached the peak stage of the saint level in terms of insight and understanding." The 5th brother, Gates, didn't treat Zisler with any respect at all. Zisler glanced at Gates unhappily. "You are physically powerful and all use heavy weapons. You should easily be able to understand the level of using something heavy as though it were light. But don't be too impatient. As long as you focus on your training, one day, you will perhaps understand it. Linley said encouragingly. In truth, Linley had a large, unfair advantage. His elemental affinity was, after all, exceptional. As a magus, he naturally was able to more easily attune with nature and commune with it. Pairing his inborn elemental affinity with his proficiency with the sword, it was very natural for him to be able to quickly deepen his level of understanding. Yes, Lord. The 5 brothers all nodded. The 5 Barker brothers all knew that right now, Linley was also at the peak of the 8th rank. As soon as he broke through to the next level, Linley would also be at the early stage of the saint level in his dragon form. Given his already high level of understanding, by then, the difference between Linley and them would be even greater. We can't allow ourselves to become a hindrance to him. The 5 proud brothers all decided to work even harder from now on. In the blink of an eye, yet another year passed. The autumn wind was still howling drearily, the same as before. Staring into the distance at the Barker brothers engaged in their training, Linley couldn't help but grin. All 5 of the Barker brothers were physically stronger than Linley, and Linley had paid for the Dawson conglomerate to produce weapons for them. 5 long-handled greataxes. Those long-handled greataxes were at least 2 meters long, and were astonishingly thick. In addition, the axe heads were extremely large as well. The greataxes themselves were made from the finest and rarest of materials, with each long-handled greatax weighing an astonishing 5,300 pounds. The 5th brother, Gates, has a relatively higher talent for insight. He was the first to understand wielding something heavy as though it were light. The other 4 have yet to grasp it. Although over a year had passed, aside from Barker, the others remained stuck at the peak stage of the 8th rank and had not broken through. The only pleasant surprise had been Gates coming to understand wielding something heavy as though it were light. Zisler had spent this year in tireless training as well. This 800-plus-year-old man had been somewhat embarrassed by the rapid increases in power by Linley and the Barker brothers, causing him to become hard-working as well. Watching the dried leaves fall from the trees, Linley suddenly felt very much at peace. 5 years. It has been 5 years. I should go fulfill my end of the 5-year agreement as well. Linley looked towards the northwest, in the direction of the prefectural city of Serre. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 42, An Appointment Kept. The 5-year agreement. Linley still remembered his promise. I hope Jen won't be too determined. Linley knew that even if in the end, Jen elected to follow him, at most Linley would only be able to treat her as he did Rebecca and Lena. Linley couldn't reciprocate her affections. After experiencing so much and passing one tribulation after another, the deepest part of Linley's heart had been frozen and locked. That layer of ice covering it was very cold, very thick. To melt the hard ice surrounding Linley's heart would be difficult. Very difficult. But when he thought about affairs of the heart, Linley began to think about Warden. According to Yale's messengers, over this past year, Warden and the 7th Princess of the Empire have been quite passionate with each other. However, according to what the letter says, it won't be easy for Warden to successfully take the 7th Princess as his wife. The 7th Princess's background was simply too excellent. She was virtuous, kind, beautiful, of high rank, and doted upon by her imperial father. There were too many suitors. The only thing Linley could do was to silently bless his little brother and hope he would have a wonderful relationship. At least, his brother couldn't end up like him. Half a month later. Lord. The 5th brother, Gates, energetically sprinted over towards Linley, who had just completed a sculpture. With excitement, he said, "My big brother has also grasped the concept of wielding something heavy as though it were light." Oh! With a flip of his hand, Linley stored away his straight chisel. With surprise, he said, "Barker has reached the level of wielding something heavy as though it were light." "Right. Lord, why don't you go take a look?" Gates advised. Linley laughed. "How about this? Gates, have everyone come to the main hall. There's something I want to tell all of you. Oh. Seeing Linley had something important that he wished to discuss, Gates nodded. After a while, everyone congregated within the main hall. Many of them were animatedly talking about Barker reaching the level of wielding something heavy as though it were light. Everyone. Smiling, Linley walked into the main hall. I have an important matter I need to take care of. On this trip, I will only bring Bebe and Haru. As for the rest of you, all you need to do is to continue to train here. If everything happens quickly, I'll be back in a few days. If I need a bit longer, I'll send someone with a message. Lord, you don't plan to take us along? Gates asked loudly. Continue your training. Linley laughed as he glanced at Gates. Gates, if you can reach the impose level, or reach the 9th rank, I will take you as well. Gates immediately shut his mouth. He wasn't Linley. Reaching the level of wielding something heavy as though it were light was already quite difficult for him. He was still just at the basic stage of this level, and had yet to even master it. Enough. Tomorrow morning, I leave at dawn. Linley declared directly. The next morning at dawn, the Barker brothers, Rebecca, Lena, and Zisler all watched as Linley, dressed in a warrior's outfit covered by a long black robe, rode off on the back of Haru, his black cloud panther, with Bebe seated next to him. The man and the two magical beasts departed from the Cloud Peaks village. His long black robe fluttered in the wind. Linley's weapons had all been withdrawn into his interspatial ring. Using the adamantine heavy sword to execute the profound truths of the earth is extremely powerful. Once that technique comes out, most likely the target will perish. Normally, it would be better for me to continue using the blood violet God's word. Linley had already reached a fairly high level of proficiency in using his profound truths of the earth. But as for the profound truths of the wind his blood violet sword used, Linley's level of proficiency was quite low. Linley didn't believe that using the blood violet sword was necessarily weaker than using the adamantine heavy sword. After all, the Forbidden Wind style spell was the single target spell dimensional edge. If magical techniques could create the effects of this spell, logically speaking, sword techniques should as well. Bebe, I've discovered that over these years, you've continued to improve. What sort of magical beast are you, exactly? Seated astride Haru, Linley laughed towards Bebe. Haru let out a growl. Master, Bebe is a total freak. I've never seen such a freakishly powerful magical beast. 5 years ago, he was about the same as me, but now, he's much more powerful. But he still hasn't reached the saint level yet. If Haru had met the 3 sons of Dylan, the king of the mountain range of magical beasts, he would know that there were other magical beasts in the world that were even more freakishly powerful than Bebe. Those 3 were terrifying magical beasts of the saint rank had easily swallowed over 100 enormous dragons into their bellies. Bebe has grown somewhat stronger. Linley chuckled. But Bebe seems to still be growing. Linley suspected that Bebe was not fully an adult yet. That's entirely possible. Bebe narcissistically raised his little head. When I, Bebe, reach adulthood, maybe I'll be a saint-level magical beast. Saint-level magical beasts such as the bloody-eyed maned lion, the savage world bear, the violet-eyed gold fur ape, these were magical beasts which would, as a natural part of their growth cycle, enter the saint level as soon as they reached full adulthood. This was the innate gift of these saint-level magical beasts. I've heard of saint-level magical beasts. But is there such a thing as magical beasts which would naturally grow up to reach the deity level? Linley sighed to himself. Even if there are, I'll wager they wouldn't appear on plains such as the Yulon continent. They continued on their journey. By nightfall, Linley reached the prefectural city of Serre. On the streets of Serre, there were many people mounted on magical beasts. However, most of those people were mounted on low-level or mid-level magical beasts such as wind wolves or fanged wolves. When Linley rode the black cloud panther on the streets, the other magical beasts all prudently retreated in terror, giving him space. Although humans, when encountering strange magical beasts, might not be able to accurately gauge the beast's strength, when a low-level magical beast encountered a high-level magical beast, they would easily be able to sense the difference in power. HRM? A Black Panther. A very ordinary man in the streets of the prefectural city of Serre saw Linley seated on his Black Panther, and his eyes immediately lit up. He has a Black Panther, and he looks exactly the same as the picture. It must be him. The man immediately grew excited. He immediately ran out of the street, heading towards a small alleyway. At the gate to the governor's castle of the prefectural city of Serre. As soon as Linley had seen the gate, he discovered that a large number of people were congregating around the gate, awaiting his arrival. Big Brother Lay! A young man and woman called out at the same time. Linley immediately recognized them. The girl who had grown even more mature and beautiful was Jen, while the handsome young fellow who was half a head taller than Jen was most likely the grown-up Keen. Keen and Jen ran over excitedly. The now 19-year-old Keen said loudly, "Big Brother Lay, I heard from the guards a long time ago that a man riding a Black Panther had arrived. I immediately guessed that it must be you." Black Panthers were extremely rare, after all. There were only two types, Black Striped Panthers, and Black Cloud Panthers. Big Brother Lay. Jen's face was slightly flushed, and she looked expectantly at Linley. "Let's talk inside," Linley said with a calm laugh. All of them entered the castle. Since he had turned 16, Keen had officially taken over the management responsibilities of the city, and by now, he was a qualified city governor. Last year, Keen had taken a beautiful wife. At the time, Keen had wanted to invite Linley, but unfortunately, he had no idea where Linley was living. "Jen, you've become a magus." Walking in the hallway, Linley laughed as he asked her this question. Given Linley's spiritual energy, he could immediately sense the aura of a magus coming from Jen. The aura wasn't particularly strong. "Right. A water-style magus." Jen's eyes shone with excitement. "Big Brother Lay, after you left, I didn't have anything to do. Afterwards, I realized that with you being so powerful, if I couldn't do anything and kept on being a hindrance to you, that wouldn't be a good thing. So, I went to have my elemental affinity and my spiritual energy tested. I didn't expect that I was suited to train in water-style magic." When she was young, Jen had been constantly suppressed and held down by her aunt, and thus didn't have the chance to train in magic at all. Nobody had any idea that Jen had the capability of becoming a magus. "But my talent isn't very high. After 5 years, I'm still only a magus of the 3rd rank," Jen said quietly. Generally speaking, from infanthood until adulthood, one's spiritual energy was continuously growing. But for geniuses such as Linley and Reynolds, even if they hadn't trained in magic when they were young and only began once they reached the age of 18, they probably would have immediately started off with the spiritual energy of a magus of the 3rd rank. 18 years of growth, combined with 5 years of training. And yet, she was still only of the 3rd rank. Her talent could only be considered to be average, perhaps a bit higher than your ordinary magi. "Big Brother Lay, have a seat." Keen enthusiastically invited Linley to sit in the seat of honor. "Let me make some introductions. This is my wife, Irene A. Seated next to Keen was a very beautiful young lady, who had a pair of pretty blue eyes. Right now, this young lady was looking at Linley with curiosity. When she and Keen had first began their courtship, Keen often would talk to her about Linley. "Big Brother Lay," Irene said courteously. "Keen, everyone, just sit down and relax. Don't stand on so much ceremony," Linley said with a calm laugh. Everyone sat down, but Keen continuously stared at Linley. Keen knew very well that the purpose of this trip had to do with that 5-year agreement he had made. 5 years having passed, Jen was now 23. Because of training in water-style magic, Jen's skin was now glistening, making her even more beautiful. And the now 23-year-old Jen now had a more womanly aura. During these 5 years, Jen had many suitors. And not just from the prefectural city of Serre. Whenever Jen and Keen went to attend the yearly events of the clan at the provincial capital of Basel, there would be many people who would attempt to flirt with or make passes at Jen. But Jen still refused to pay any of them any heed. Jen. Linley looked at Jen, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. I imagine you still remember our 5-year agreement. Jen, I'll tell you right now, in my heart, I truly can only envision you as a younger sister who needs someone to cherish her. Jen's entire body trembled, but in the next moment, she began to laugh. Next to her, Keen and their housekeeper, Lambert, both let out a low sigh. Big brother Lay. Jen said. I feel very fortunate to have a big brother like you. No matter what, no matter where, I'll follow you. I just hope that you won't discard me before I get married. Linley slightly trembled. But he immediately understood that Jen truly had made up her mind to follow him. But judging from what Jen was saying, over the course of these 5 years, Jen had already mentally prepared for what he had said today. Then you've decided to follow me and leave here? Linley asked. Jen paused for a second. After all, she was very close to her brother, Keen. In her heart, she couldn't bear to part with him either. But after taking a glance at Keen and seeing how happy and loving he was with Irene, Jen's worries melted away. I can follow you away at any time, Big Brother Lay. Big Brother Lay, where do we go first? Jen asked. We'll first pay a visit to a small town near the provincial capital of Basel. Linley replied. The provincial capital of Basel. Keen started, then immediately said, Big Brother Lay, our Jacques clan will organize a yearly gathering at the provincial capital of Basel each year. It happens every year on November 15th. The day will come in 3 days. Big Brother Linley, would you be willing to let my sis go with me one more time? It's in the same direction anyhow. Keen looked expectantly at Linley. Keen really couldn't bear to be parted from his sister. He knew that Linley roamed the world. Once his sister left with Linley, who knew how long it would be before the two would meet again. Having grown up alongside his big sister, their affection was naturally very deep. Linley looked at Keen, then looked at Jen. Finally, he nodded. Fine. We'll go to the provincial capital of Basel together. After you finish attending your clan's annual gathering, Jen will leave with me. Thank you. Keen said gratefully. While Linley took up residence for a few days within the prefectural city's castle, the Radiant Church's forces that were hidden within the prefectural city of Serre were very excited. That Linley actually came to the prefectural city of Serre. This is wonderful. A white-haired man said, his face covered with excitement. 5 years, 5 full years. We've finally found Linley. The Radiant Church had been searching fruitlessly for Linley for 5 years. Sadly, due to their lack of manpower within the O'Brien Empire, their forces were primarily concentrated in places such as prefectural cities. Naturally, they wouldn't be able to discover Linley, who was hiding within a countryside village. However, in this prefectural city of Serre, the place where Linley had once stayed for quite some time, the Radiant Church had a good amount of people present. Hurry and send a message to Lady Linden in the countryside. Tell her that Linley has arrived at the prefectural city of Serre. The white-robed man immediately instructed his subordinates. Linden and the other 5 angels, upon arriving at the O'Brien Empire, had searched everywhere for Linley for 2 full years, but had found nothing. In the end, with no other choices, they had settled into a small town near the prefectural city of Serre, ready to act at a moment's notice. As soon as they received any news, they would immediately head out. They would kill Linley no matter what the cost, even if it meant they would have to die with him. This was their fate as angels. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 43, The Gathering in Basel. That night, Linley had dinner at the main hall of the governor's castle. Keen, Jen. Come outside a moment. After finishing dinner, Linley called out to them, then walked out of the main hall to the quiet rear gardens. Keen and Jen exchanged glances, then followed Linley to the gardens as well. The gardens at night were very peaceful and quiet. Looking at Jen and Keen, Linley smiled. "Jen, Keen, there's something I must inform you of." Keen and Jen stared at Linley, puzzled. "The Radiant Church and I have a deep hatred between us. We will not rest until one or the other is destroyed." These words from Linley immediately stunned Jen and Keen. They knew that Linley was no ordinary man, but they had no idea that he was diametrically opposed to the Radiant Church. The Radiant Church was, without question, an enormous entity. Lowering his voice, Linley said, "5 years ago, when I fought with the Radiant Church, it most likely resulted in them becoming aware that I am in the O'Brien Empire. 5 years ago, the forces of the Radiant Church became aware of Hera's existence. I believe that just based on this alone, they should have discovered how I had followed the two of you to the prefectural city of Ser. Many people knew that back then, a mysterious expert with a Black Panther companion had protected Keen and Jen on their journey to Ser, allowing Keen to assume the position of city governor. This wasn't a secret. It wouldn't be strange at all for the Radiant Church to find out about this. I suspect that the Radiant Church has definitely hidden quite a few people within the prefectural city of Ser," Linley said calmly. From the moment he had decided to come to the prefectural city of Ser, Linley had already made certain plans. That Stella had exchanged blows with him before. After that fight, the Radiant Church would certainly have realized how dangerous Linley was to them. If they didn't send people immediately to kill him as soon as possible, then the Radiant Church really would be a pack of fools. "Then what should we do?" Keen and Jen were both rather bewildered. "Jen, first of all, let me ask you. Do you still want to follow me?" Linley stared at Jen. Jen nodded without any hesitation. Linley nodded slightly. "I'm afraid that within your castle, the Radiant Church has spies here as well. That's what I want to let you know, that I plan to leave the prefectural city of Ser tonight." "What?" Jen looked at Linley in astonishment. "Big Brother Lei, you plan to leave by yourself? Don't worry. I'll just head out slightly before you do. I'll head to the provincial capital of Basel first. I'll take up residence in the eastern side of the city's Nile Nighter Hotel. When the time comes, you can find me there." Linley was very confident in his ability to deal with the Radiant Church's men. However, he couldn't take Jen and Keen along with him. If he brought such a large group of people, he would be as good as harming Jen and Keen. "The Nile Hotel of the Eastern City. This is a very famous hotel. I know where it is." Keen nodded. Over these 5 years, he had paid quite a few visits to the provincial capital. Linley had made these plans long ago. Right now, whether or not he killed the Radiant Church's forces wasn't important. After all, killing those people didn't make a huge difference to the Radiant Church. If he encountered them, he would kill them. If he didn't, then forget it. As for Jen, by the time they reunited with the 5 Barker brothers and Zisler, Linley would no longer be concerned about any schemes the Radiant Church might have to play. "Then I'll leave now." Linley laughed. "Immediately?" Jen and Keen were startled. "Immediately. That way, the Radiant Church's men wouldn't have any idea." Linley chuckled, then transformed into a black blur, flying through the air and disappearing from the rear gardens. At the same moment, the Black Loud Panther, Haru, as well Bebe also departed at high speed. 3 black blurs flashed over the prefectural city of Ser's 20-meter-tall walls, easily crossing over to the other side. Although the city walls were useful against ordinary combatants, to experts on Linley's current level, they were nothing more than a fairly high doorstop. Riding on Haru's back, the night wind howled past Linley. "I've discovered that I rather like the feeling of traveling by night." Feeling the cool wind blow against his face, Linley felt very much refreshed. The light of the moon seemed to make the world covered by a layer of thin gauze, making everything seem so dreamlike. This night, there were people riding on horses at high speed heading to other places as well. These were the people who were rushing towards Linden to give her the good news. However, there was a distance of over 100 kilometers from the prefectural city of Serre to the town Linden was staying in. Linley had only arrived in the prefectural city of Serre at nightfall. The supervisor for the prefectural city of Serre only received the news at around 6 o'clock at night. By the time he sent someone out, it was already 7 o'clock. At around 8 o'clock at night, Linley had left the prefectural city of Serre. At this time, that messenger was still on the road. By around 9 o'clock, the messenger finally managed to arrive at the town where Linden and the others were staying. The town was lit by fires. The poor man who had been blown on by the cold wind of November finally felt a hint of warmth. Lord Linden. The messenger man arrived at Linden's residence. Seeing Linden at the doorway, he immediately jumped off his horse. Lord Linden, something important has happened. We've already discovered that Linley has arrived at the prefectural city of Serre. The eyes of Linden, who had been standing there coldly, suddenly lit up. Linley. Linden was both shocked as well as overjoyed. She had waited for 5 full years, to the point of being numb. And then tonight, this report had come out of nowhere. Psych psyche, psych. All of you, come out. Linden's cold voice rang out a few times, and the other 5 angels immediately rushed over. These 6 angels were all wearing human bodies, and thus their power was limited to that of a warrior of the 9th rank. But their essence was still that of the angels. They would definitely obey orders. For the sake of the glory of the Lord, they would be willing to sacrifice their lives at any time. Upon hearing that there was news of Linley's return to the prefectural city of Serre, the other 5 angels grew excited as well. Their mission was to kill Linley. Let's go, we head out immediately. Linden immediately ordered. Yes. The other 5 didn't hesitate at all. Linden and the others didn't bother about the messenger. The 6 of them, relying on their legs, immediately began racing towards the direction of the prefectural city of Serre. As combatants of the 9th rank, without question, the speed they could reach was much faster than that of horses. The next morning, within a very ordinary manner in the prefectural city of Serre. The previous night, Linden and her people had taken up residence here upon reaching the prefectural city of Serre. What? Linley disappeared. Linden stared coldly at the white-robed man in front of her. The white-robed man immediately said, Lord Linden, the people we stationed within the city governor's castle didn't know either. They only found out this morning that Linley and his 2 magical beasts disappeared. Most likely, they've left the prefectural city of Serre. Bam! Linden angrily smashed a fist against the stone desk in front of her, smashing it into tiny pieces. The other 5 angels were extremely angry as well. The 6 of them had spent over 5 years here. They had just received word of Linley's arrival, but then in the blink of an eye, he had disappeared again. The white-robed man was somewhat nervous now. He knew that the 6 people in front of him were very powerful. Even the Northwest Administrative Province's supervisor had to obey the orders of these 6 people. However, the white-robed man didn't know that these 6 were actually angels. Only in the moments before the deaths, when Linden and the others chose to go all out, would their true power as angels be put on display. Investigate. Go investigate. Find out where Linley has gone. Also, activate every resource we have in the entire Northwest Administrative Province. We must find Linley. Linley must be somewhere within the Northwest Administrative Province. Linden said in a cold, deadly voice. Yes. The white-robed man immediately assented. They hadn't been able to find Linley for 5 years. Linden had even begun to worry if Linley had perhaps left the O'Brien Empire. After all, given they had found no trace of him, there was no way they could be certain as to where he actually was. But at least they now knew for sure that Linley was in the Northwest Administrative Province. Just as Linden was feeling furious at her helplessness on the 3rd morning, they received word from the provincial capital of Basel. Linley has appeared within the provincial capital of Basel. As soon as they received this news, Lyndon's other colleagues grew excited. Lord, shall we head out now? The five looked at Lyndon expectantly. Lyndon was the captain of their squad. In fact, amongst the descended angels, Lyndon could be considered a fairly famous person. The angels that would descend into bodies that could only support the 9th rank were almost all two-winged angels. Only 3 of them were cherubim, 4-winged angels, and of the 3, Lyndon was the only female one. That Mackenzie is in the provincial capital. Lyndon frowned. Mackenzie has reached the saint level nearly 60 years ago. From our reports, his power can be considered a mid-stage saint level. If he were to interfere, things would become complicated. Lord, if we were to go all out, killing Mackenzie shouldn't be too hard. Another nearby angel, the one known as Psyche, spoke out. Right. When going all out, we can allow our bodies to collapse and utilize all of our true power. The 5 of us are all two-winged angels, while you, Lord, are a cherub. Although it will only be for a short period of time, it should be enough to kill Linley. Hearing her subordinate's words, Lyndon hesitated. Indeed. If angels were to ignore their physical collapse, they could indeed use all of their real power for a short period of time. But most likely, after just 2 or 3 attacks, their bodies would have turned to ash. When a cherub and 5 two-winged angels used the angel battle formation and allowed their bodies to collapse from using their full power, even a mid-stage saint-level combatant might die in their hands. No rush. Lyndon said calmly. Everyone, calm down. Going all out is our last resort. After all, pre-transformation, Linley isn't that impressive. We can instead find an opportunity where Linley is in his human form and directly kill him. Lord, then your intention is to, the 5 looked at Lyndon. That Linley doesn't recognize the 6 of us. A hint of a cruel smile was on Lyndon's face. That day, Lyndon's group, led by the white-robed man, rode fine horses out of the prefectural city of Serre. Lord, the military carriage up ahead belongs to the soldiers of the city governor of Serre. The white-robed man reported in a quiet voice to Lyndon and the others as soon as he saw them. Oh? Is it Jen and Keen? Lyndon glanced at the distant caravan. Jen and Keen's relationship with Linley was something that Lyndon knew quite a bit about. Have your subordinates been mixed into their caravan? Lyndon lowered her voice. Yes, Lord. The white-robed man nodded. Smiling, Lyndon said, that's fine. For now, we don't need to pay them any attention. Lyndon's group clearly traveled at a much faster pace than Keen and Jen's group. In the blink of an eye, they passed them by. The reason Keen and Jen were making this trip out to the prefectural city of Basel was because they needed to attend the annual dinner party. Lyndon's team and Jen's caravan were both headed towards the provincial capital of Basel. As for Linley, quite some time ago, he had settled down in the hotel in the east side of the city. There was a small manor located right off behind the hotel. Linley was staying there. I came to the provincial capital of Basel in such grand fashion. Most likely, the Radiant Church's men recognized me. I wonder who the Radiant Church will send out next time? Linley wasn't worried in the slightest. He was actually quite eager. I haven't encountered anyone who could fight me head-on yet, or force me to use the 100-layered waves level of the profound truths of the earth. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 44, Neighbors. The provincial capital of Basel was the base of operations for the ancient Jacques clan, here in the Northwest Administrative Province. Here in the Northwest Administrative Province, the Jacques clan could be considered the local kings. During their annual clan gathering, all of the various branches of the clan would hurry over to the provincial capital. In the northeast part of the provincial capital, there was an extremely large and ancient castle. This was the headquarters of the Jacques clan. Yulon calendar, year 10,008. November 14th. This was a day when the Jacques clan's castle would always be decorated and brightly lit. The number of guards at the gate were tripled as well, compared to the past. In addition, many branch members of the clan were passing through the gates this day, arriving from all over the world. Sis, the clan's castle is much larger than ours, at least 10 times larger. Keen peered through his carriage's cloth door while sighing in amazement. This carriage contained 3 people: Keen, Irene, and Jen. Jen also stared through the door. Nodding, she said, "The clan clearly has far more experts than us as well. Only, I wonder if great-grandfather will be there as well." The great-grandfather which Jen spoke of was Mackenzie. Each year, at the annual gathering, Mackenzie sometimes attended but sometimes did not. However, 2 years ago, Mackenzie did show himself once. That sighting had satisfied Jen and Keen's desire to see the hero whom everyone in the clan worshipped. It is very possible. Irene has never seen great-grandfather. Keen held his wife's hands. The caravan quickly arrived at the castle gates. It came to a halt. Jen, Keen, and Irene all knew the rules. They got off the carriage. "Jen!" A happy, teasing voice rang out. Immediately upon hearing this voice, Jen frowned, but then she squeezed out a smile. She turned her head and looked towards a young man with gleaming hair. "Cousin Albert aibote. Cousin Albert." Keen and Irene also said courteously. Albert looked like someone who was full of himself. Being educated since he was young had given him the airs of an ancient, noble clan, but just by looking at his eyes and his face, anyone could tell that this man was an empty-headed lecher. But Albert was the eldest son of the current clan leader of the Jacques clan, and was the successor to the position as well. The future clan leader of the Jacques clan. Who would dare look down at Albert, given his status? "Jen, you are growing more beautiful by the year." "Keen, Irene, don't just stand there like idiots, come in." Albert warmly escorted Jen and the others into the castle. Because the family gathering was on November 15th, quite a few people arrived on the 14th. The night of the 14th, the castle of the Jacques clan was extremely lively. Big Sis, feeling frustrated over Albert again. Keen walked into Jen's room. Seeing Jen standing at the window and sighing, he immediately could guess at what Jen was thinking about. Jen turned her head to glance at her younger brother. Frowning, she said, "That Albert doesn't have any good intentions. Each time at our clan gathering, he'll come bother me. These days never pass by easily." "Sis." Keen took his sister by the hand. Apologetically, he said, "I know that the only reason you didn't go with Big Brother Lay was because you wanted to spend a few more days with me." "Keen." Jen affectionately patted Keen on the head. "Keen, you are even taller than me now." Keen lowered his head silently. Jen had taken care of Keen since they were young. Ever since they had arrived in the Holy Union, their mother had been severely ill, and so Jen had taken care of Keen like a mother would have. The affection between these two siblings was very deep. "Jen, cousin Jen." Albert's voice rang out again. Jen and Keen both frowned, no trace of enjoyment on their faces now. This Albert really was as annoying and stifling as a boa constrictor. In the blink of an eye, Albert had arrived at the doorway. "Jen." "Oh, Keen, you are here also." Albert beamed. "Jen, we're organizing a small banquet in the main hall. Jen, let's go together. I've arranged for some people to prepare several beautiful evening gowns for you." Jen shook her head. "No need. I'm feeling a bit dizzy and am a bit unwell." "Why would you be feeling unwell? Let me take a look." Albert actually stepped forward, intending to touch Jen by her forehead. Jen immediately took 2 steps back. Keen snickered from the side, "Cousin Albert, my sister isn't feeling well. Let her have a good rest." Albert stood there for a moment, then laughed and nodded. "Fine." He then stared at Keen. "Keen, come with me for a moment. Cousin Jen, have a good rest. If there is anything you need, just let the servants know." He gave Keen a meaningful look. Keen nodded, then followed Albert out. Within the flower garden, Albert and Keen were walking together. Albert was silent, and Keen said nothing either. After a long time, Keen, how does it feel to be the governor of a prefectural city? Albert suddenly asked. Keen was startled. Slowly, he said, pretty good. Albert laughed and nodded. Of course it's good. You govern millions of people, Keen. You must understand that the entire Northwest Administrative Province has only 10 prefectural cities. Positions like the city governorship are highly sought after, and many people keep their eyes on those positions. After all, our Jacques clan is a large clan. As though he understood something, Keen nodded. The Jacques clan was continuously starting new branches. Naturally, each generation was more numerous than the last. In the past, the reason why Keen's father, Count Wade, had been lucky enough to receive the governorship was because he was on very close terms with the previous clan leader. In truth, the various city governorships were totally all controlled and decided upon by the clan leader of the Jacques clan. After all, the Jacques clan had sole authority over the management of the Northwest Administrative Province. Keen, you should know that many of my younger siblings have grown up now, such as my own third brother. Right now, he's only a major in the army. Many of these people would very much like to become the governor of a prefectural city. Albert looked at Keen with an expression that both was and wasn't a smile. Keen knew what Albert was hinting at. And not just my siblings. My uncles as well. In the past, they weren't able to overcome your father, but they've never given up. Albert looked at Keen. Keen, I have a very good impression of you. But you must understand that to get something, you have to give something. Keen was silent. Keen, you have taken the city governorship, yes, but I, the future clan leader, can make you lose it as well. Albert saw that Keen was silent, and began to speak more coldly. Cousin Albert, go ahead and state your desires. Keen forced a smile to his face. Albert laughed. Haha, you are my cousin. Of course I won't force you to do anything. I just hope that we can further deepen our relationship. For example, you can have your big sister marry me. What do you think? Keen was filled with rage. He knew Albert's intentions long ago. Such a gentle, beautiful, virtuous woman such as Jen, especially after beginning to train in water-style magic, was a very mesmerizing, refined lady. Albert had been lusting after her this entire time. But Albert was already 30 years old and had 3 wives. If Keen's sister were to marry him, she would be nothing more than a concubine. What's more, his sister was going to follow Linley. Cousin Albert, I've told you in the past that my sister already has someone she likes. Keen said helplessly. What a joke. Albert sneered. Keen, if your sister has someone she likes, why hasn't she gotten married yet? And even if she likes someone, we can just go ahead and kill him. Albert had desired Jen for quite some time now. Not only was she beautiful, she was a magus. After a person trained in magic, their longevity would be extended. Most likely, even when she was 60 or 70, Jen would look like a 30-year-old lady. Albert naturally desired a wife like this. You can't kill him. The person my sister likes is an expert of the 9th rank. Keen made up his mind. A combatant of the 9th rank. Albert frowned. This was troublesome. If he were the current clan leader, he could use the powerful soldiers of the clan to go kill that expert of the 9th rank. But he was only a successor. The people at his disposal were quite limited, and they weren't very powerful either. Keen, you'd best not be lying to me. Albert stared coldly at Keen. Keen bowed slightly. Cousin Albert, I'm definitely not lying. My sister likes him. There's nothing I can do about that. Cousin Albert, I won't disturb you any further. I bid you farewell. Albert let out a cold snort, staring at Keen as he left. 5 years. Albert stared in the direction of Jen's room. This time, I definitely cannot let Jen slip away again. So what if he is an expert of the 9th rank? Does he dare come and make trouble for the Jacques clan? A fierce, wolf-like look was in Albert's eyes. On the 15th, Linley had headed to the headquarters of the Dawson conglomerate early in the morning. Using his medallion showing that he was an elder, he sent some people to Cloud Peak's village to inform Zisler and the others that he was going to be delayed. And then, Linley quietly stayed in the Nile Hotel. There were over 10 manors behind the Nile Hotel, all of which were tall and well made. Linley was residing in one of them. Within his courtyard, Linley finished carving a sculpture, and then began to wave his adamantine heavy sword about as he pleased. Bebe and Hera both lazily rested on the ground. After training with the sword for some time, Linley came to a halt, a sudden thought having come to mind. It has been a year since I reached the peak of the 8th rank. In this past month, I've always had this feeling that I'm about to break through, but for some reason, there's just some tiny piece missing. To an ordinary person, breaking through from the peak of the 8th rank to the 9th rank wasn't a big deal. But for supreme warriors, the difference between the two was extremely great. Upon entering the 9th rank, Linley in dragon form would be at the same level. I can't be too hasty. My speed of training is already very fast. Linley was still fairly calm. Staring towards the south, Linley once again began to think about his younger brother, Warden. When I reach the 9th rank, I'll head towards the imperial capital and meet with my younger brother. It has been a long time since I've seen Warden. Ever since Warden had left home when he was 6 and headed to the O'Brien Empire along with housekeeper Hyrie, the two brothers had never met again. And now, Warden was 22 years old. In another month, he would be 23. HRM. Linley suddenly turned and stared at the courtyard walls. The various manors operated by the hotel were all quite close to each other, with each plot of land divided into 2 manors. At this time, in the manor adjoining Linley's, the person who was renting that manor had climbed over the wall and was peeking in this direction. This guest was an extremely adorable, agile young lady. Her guileless eyes were staring in Linley's direction, but they were locked on the black loud panther on the ground. Wow, what a huge panther! The young lady very agilely hopped over the wall, and then jogged towards Haru. Don't touch him! Linley immediately shouted. The young lady came to a halt, smiling and laughing at Linley. Big brother, I've never seen such an adorable, large black panther. Can I please touch him? This young lady had a head full of silver hair, and her eyes were very intelligent. She had a playful smile on her face, but she was dressed in the garb of a female warrior. Linley took a sizing look at this silver-haired girl. A warrior's power was hard to gauge just by looking at them, but Linley could tell from this girl's aura that she was at least a warrior of the 7th rank, or perhaps even higher. Hera doesn't like being touched by others, Linley said calmly. The silver-haired girl couldn't help but pout, scrunching her nose up as she frowned. Humph, I don't believe you. My teacher's magical beasts often let me touch them. The silver-haired girl ran directly towards Haru. Gruol. Haru suddenly rose to his feet, baring his sharp fangs as he stared coldly at the silver-haired girl. The silver-haired girl was immediately frightened, and she stumbled back 2 steps. I told you. Haru doesn't like being touched. Enough, you can go back to your own place now. Linley directly asked her to leave. The silver-haired girl smiled bewitchingly at Linley. My master told me that panther-type magical beasts are very formidable. Then big brother, you must be very powerful as well. Can I spar with you? Spar. Linley disliked his life being interrupted by others. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Danlan Danlan. The silver-haired girl said with an adorable smile. You can call me Lei. But I don't have any time for you. You can go back now. Linley still spoke coldly and calmly. For a young girl to be at least a warrior of the 7th rank, she wasn't as simple as she appeared. The silver-haired girl pouted helplessly. Oh. Got it. And then she turned and left, although her heart was filled with frustration. This Linley really is a cold fellow. Getting close to him will be difficult. But I won't give up so easily either. If I can kill him easily, I will. This silver-haired girl was Linden. But in terms of temperament, Linden had changed dramatically. In the past, she was an ice-cold angel. But now, she had become adorable and lively. One had to admit that her acting skills were formidable. Oh, Big Brother Lay, you are a sculptor. Linden looked at the sculpture Linley had just completed and immediately ran over in excitement. Staring at it, she said happily, my teacher also likes sculptures, but he doesn't know how to carve himself. As she spoke, Linden carefully inspected the sculpture with great curiosity. Linley frowned. This silver-haired girl was really annoying. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 45, Vicious Acts. This sculpture was one which Linley had just finished not too long ago. Given Linley's current skill, his stone sculpting was at an extremely high level as well. This silver-haired young lady carefully examined the sculpture from every angle. Wonderful. Just wonderful. After inspecting the sculpture with great care for a while, she turned her head to look at Linley. Big Brother Lay, I sense that this sculpture of yours is better than those of my masters, but I don't know exactly how to describe it. Despite such an adorable girl looking at him like this, Linley only felt irritated. Miss Danlin, I need to train. Linley said tactfully. The silver-haired girl nodded. Okay, I'll leave right away. As soon as she said these words, Linley let out a sigh of relief. But then the silver-haired girl continued, however, Big Brother Lay, after you finish training, you need to teach me how to stone sculpt. Linley hardened his face. Stone sculpting is one of the top-tier artistic forms. How can I so easily transmit its secrets to others? Indeed, most master-level sculptors would not easily accept disciples. Oh. The silver-haired girl lowered her head in disappointment, beginning to walk to the nearby wall. And then, with an easy leap, she jumped to the other side. She's finally gone. Linley let out a long sigh. But then, the silver-haired girl's head popped out from over the wall. Big Brother Lay, have a good training session. After you are done, I'll come and find you. After speaking, she disappeared again. Linden returned to her own bedroom. Sitting down on a chair, her face returned to its usual coldness, and her eyes were as icy and merciless as ever. If Linley saw her, he wouldn't be able to believe that someone was able to act so well. This Linley is suspicious of everyone, and won't let anyone easily get close to him. This is rather troublesome. As a descended angel, Linden actually truly did not wish for her and the other 5 angels to die alongside Linley. However, as an angel, she could not disobey orders. One step at a time. If she could easily kill Linley somehow, wouldn't that be better than sacrificing her life? Given the amount of care Linley has shown towards Jen and Keen, it makes no sense that he would be so suspicious towards me. Linden had come up with this plan after learning about how Linley had treated Jen and Keen. As long as Linden could get into close physical range with Linley, given her power as a combatant of the 9th rank, she could suddenly ambush him from close range in his human form. She had a 90% plus chance to kill him in that sort of situation. Perhaps it was because he sensed my power. Linden shook her head. This Linley has no sense of curiosity. I mentioned my master several times, but he still didn't ask me who my master is. Linden actually had prepared an entire chain of lines to fool Linley. Although Linden appeared very young, in reality, her actual age was most likely far greater than that of Doring Cowart. Only, the 10,000 years she had spent in the divine realm of the Radiant Sovereign hadn't been as impactful to her as the decades she had spent here. From her personality and her attitude, that silver-haired girl seems like an unreasonable little princess. Linley frowned. But her power. In truth, Linley was continuously wary of the Radiant Church's forces. As far as Linley was concerned, the Radiant Church's forces should have already located him here by now. And now, all of a sudden, a young female warrior of the 7th rank appeared? Even if she appeared to be lively and cute, Linley wouldn't easily trust her. Before he trusted someone, he would take their strength into consideration. If she had been a weak little girl who didn't have the strength to kill a chicken, Linley's attitude probably would have been much better. After all, even if you gave such a girl a weapon, she wouldn't be able to hurt him at all. But this young lady was different. If she were to suddenly attack him from a near distance, it would be very possible for her to heavily injure or kill him. Could it be that the assassin the Radiant Church has sent after me this time is this young lady? But thinking back to the innocent, pure look in the silver-haired girl's eyes, Linley found it rather hard to believe. That night, the silver-haired girl came again, but this time, she came pushing a hotel food cart from the front gate. "Big Brother Lay, I took the place of the servant in delivering dinner for you." Lyndon's clear voice rang out. Her face was covered with smiles, but Linley, looking at her, only felt a headache coming. "You again? What, is there a problem?" Lyndon pouted, then tittered, "Big Brother Lay, I brought you dinner, so you teach me stone sculpting, okay?" "No," Linley refused. "Stingy." Lyndon wrinkled her nose. "When I cook for my teacher will do anything I ask him to." "You are a stingy fellow. Your teacher is your teacher, I am not." Linley simply wouldn't agree. This stranger was at least of the 7th rank, and perhaps even higher. Linley would not permit this female warrior to draw close to him, while teaching someone how to stone sculpt would definitely require them to be in close physical contact. After all, this period of time was the period when he was expecting the Radiant Church to act against him. "Remember, I don't want you delivering my dinner," Linley said coldly. Lyndon's face changed, and she glared angrily at Linley. "You bastard! You don't know when someone is being good to you. I'll definitely go tell my master. He'll come over here and kill you." "Kill me?" Linley looked at the angry expression the girl's face. "Of course. My master is very powerful," the silver-haired girl said arrogantly. "Who is this oh-so powerful master of yours?" Linley asked. The silver-haired girl said arrogantly, "I'll tell you. The name of my master is Hatesun Hatesun. The monolithic sword saint, Hatesun." Linley was startled. In the entire O'Brien Empire, if the war god was considered the #1 expert, then without question, the second highest expert would be the monolithic sword saint, Hatesun. This monolithic sword saint had been at the peak stage of the saint level for many years now, and he had never lost a single duel against any saint-level experts. He was flawless in terms of both offense and defense. In addition, he was a very cold and remote person. Virtually nothing was capable of impeding his developments. A flawless, perfect saint-level expert who towered above all others, his very perfect was the reason why others dubbed him the monolithic sword saint. "So now you know that you should be afraid." The silver-haired girl laughed arrogantly. "But don't worry. So long as you teach me how to stone sculpt, I won't tell my teacher." "No wonder." Linley looked at the silver-haired girl. "What rank are you currently at?" "The 8th rank already," the silver-haired girl said proudly. "What do you think? The entire empire doesn't have many experts of the 8th rank who are younger than me." Linley glanced at the silver-haired girl. "Miss Danlin, you can go back and tell your teacher that I am unwilling to teach you stone sculpting. I want to see if he will come over and kill me." The silver-haired girl started, and then her attitude softened. "Begging," she said, "Big Brother Lay, I'm begging you, just teach me, okay?" As she spoke, she walked closer to Linley. Linley directly took 3 steps back, retreating into his main hall. "Miss Danlin, I need to rest now. You should go back." Linley shut the door to his manor. HRMPH. The silver-haired girl let out a snort, then left. The next 2 days, the silver-haired girl would try all sorts of things. She would buy beautiful clothes to bring to Linley as a gift, or pretend to be very pitiable and just watch Linley. It was as though she absolutely refused to accept the fact that Linley wouldn't teach her how to stone sculpt. The 4th day. This morning, Linden came to Linley's courtyard once more, as she had every day past. "Big brother Lay, I'm leaving now," Linden said in a somewhat lost voice. Linley glanced at the silver-haired girl with some surprise. These past 3 days, Linley had been tormented by this girl to the point of getting a headache whenever he saw her. What's more, Linley was still uncertain as to who this girl really was. Someone belonging to the Radiant Church? Or the disciple of the monolithic sword saint? But the longer he had interacted with Linden, the more Linley came to feel that this silver-haired girl really was the playful, active type. He didn't really think she belonged to the Radiant Church. If she is an assassin of the Radiant Church, then I am truly in awe of her acting abilities, Linley secretly said to himself. Linden glanced at Linley helplessly. "Big brother Lay, I've always worshipped my master, and my master also likes sculpture. I really wanted to carve a good sculpture for him, but you aren't willing to teach me. It is useless if you do not have enough time and not enough talent." Linley shook his head. Linden's eyes lit up. She quickly said, "I have both time and talent." "Are you an Earth-style magus?" Linley suddenly asked. No. Linden shook her head, then asked questioningly, "What does this have to do with being an Earth-style magus?" Linley shook his head. "If you are not an Earth-style magus, that means you do not have the talent necessary to learn stone sculpting from me." Linley was telling the truth. The straight chisel school of sculpting required the sculptor to be an Earth-style magus. "You are just making that up." Linden took a step forward, pointing at Linley with a finger. "I've never heard anyone say that stone sculpting required one to be an Earth-style magus. There's many things you don't know." Linley laughed calmly. Right now, Linden was roughly 2 meters away from Linley. Linden was calculating to herself, 2 meters distance. In his normal human form, I am more powerful than Linley. I should have the chance to kill him. Originally, Linden had wanted for the two of them to be in even closer proximity before making her move. But Linley didn't give her the chance. "Big brother Lay, I know that you are lying. Big brother Lay, I just want to ask you one last time. Are you willing to teach me stone sculpting?" Linden looked at Linley with hopeful eyes. Linley shook his head. "Oh." Linden lowered her head despondently. But right at this moment, Linden suddenly charged at Linley, moving as fast as lightning, while from within Linden's right hand, a dagger appeared. 2 meters. They were too close. But then, a strange violet light flashed. Linden only felt as though that violet sword flash flickered everywhere, changing positions constantly. It somehow wrapped around her dagger and her arm as well. HRMPH. Linden immediately dropped her dagger while slamming her left hand directly at Linley. Boom! Their two hands clashed against each other, and Linden hurriedly charged forward. But Linley moved in a strangely graceful way backwards, in the blink of an eye retreating to the corner of the wall. Growl! Haru and Bebe were both standing by Linley's side, but before Haru and the others could attack, Linden immediately retreated. "You want to kill me?" Linley stared coldly at Linden. Raising her head high, Linden said angrily, "Lay, listen up. I, Danlin, have never begged anyone in my entire life like I did just now. Even when I'm with my master, I've never acted like this before. 3 full days. I tried everything I could to beg you to teach me, but you refused to do so. So what if I want to kill you now? Is there something wrong about that?" Such overbearing logic. Linley looked at Linden. Linden stood at the gate to Linley's manor, staring angrily at him. "If you have the ability to do so, come and kill me. My fellow apprentices will be arriving soon. If you dare bully me, I'll go tell them about it. Right now, Linley's desire to kill had already been aroused. Regardless of whether this Danlin girl was really the student of the monolithic sword saint, or if she was not, she definitely had tried to kill him just then. But Linley had this strange feeling of danger. He couldn't clearly explain where it was coming from, but this feeling was warning him, do not pursue Danlin. If you do, it will be very dangerous. HRMPH, you don't have the guts to kill me, right? Then I'm leaving. Lyndon arrogantly pushed the door to the manor open, then began walking out. Linley didn't chase after her, only mentally sending out an order. Bebe, go through the underground tunnels and take a look to see what is outside. Right now, outside Linley's gate. The other 5 experts of the 9th rank were all outside the gate. They had taken up their positions long ago, ready to join with Lyndon in the angel battle formation at any time. When Lyndon walked out of the courtyard, she used her eyes to signal the other 5. Those 5 quietly followed behind Lyndon, quickly departing. HRMPH exiting the hotel, Lyndon was very unhappy. If just then, Linley had chased after me, the 6 of us could have killed Linley in the blink of an eye. But he kept hiding in his manor, with those 2 magical beasts beside him. Even if the 6 of us ran inside, given Linley's speed, he definitely would be able to flee. Lyndon knew very well that killing Linley within the provincial capital was not a wise decision. After all, Mackenzie was living in that nearby castle. Given Mackenzie's speed, he could probably fly over here in the blink of an eye. Lord, what should we do? The other 5 were looking at Lyndon. Execute the next strategy, Lyndon said coldly. As for killing Linley in a suicide attack, that is an option of last resort, to be used only if we have no other choices. The other 5 nodded. Even angels wouldn't be willing to throw away their lives too easily. HRM. Lyndon suddenly saw a man and a woman being escorted by quite a few guards. Lyndon had seen pictures of Jen and Keen before. I hadn't gone to find them yet, but they actually delivered themselves to me. Lyndon's lips began to curve up in a smile. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 46, A Change of Plans. Within the courtyard. Boss, just now, when I dug my way through the tunnels and went outside, I saw that 5 men left alongside that Danlin chick. Bibi's eyes were shining with an angry light. That bad woman. She definitely had ill intentions. Linley laughed calmly. No need to overthink things. That woman was almost certainly someone the Radiant Church sent to kill me. Just now, if I had chased out after her, most likely as soon as I stepped out of the gate, the people lying in ambush outside would have attacked at the same time and killed me. If she hadn't already made up her mind to kill me long ago, why would she have arranged for people to lie in ambush? What's more, I couldn't sense those people at all. He hadn't been able to detect the presences of those 5 men hiding outside. These 5 men were definitely experts that were no weaker than he himself. Master, what should we do, then? Haru mentally transmitted. With a thought, Linley summoned his adamant heavy sword to his hands. What should we do? We don't need to mind them. When Jen returns, I'll immediately take her away from here. If they follow, I'll kill them. As long as he wasn't ambushed, after transforming into his dragon form, with the adamant heavy sword in hand, Linley was confident of dealing with even an early-stage saint-level expert. A short while later. Big Brother Lay. That familiar voice rang out. Enter. Linley laughed as he stood up, casually pulling the gate open. Jen and Keen walked in. Keen looked at Linley, sighing. Big Brother Lay, my sis almost got taken advantage of this time. Fortunately I was cautious and arranged people to surround and guard her room. Taken advantage of? Linley looked at Jen. Jen shook her head and laughed. It's nothing. It's just that Albert, the first successor to the clan leader position. Tonight, he was planning to secretly enter my room. Fortunately, my little bro had taken some precautionary measures. That Albert was afraid of this situation getting out of hand as well. After all, there were many people inside the castle. That Albert has always had bad intentions towards you. I don't dare to be caught off guard. Even if I stop being the city governor, so what? No matter what, I won't allow you to be taken advantage of by that bastard, sis. Keen said solemnly. Somewhat moved, Jen looked at her little brother. Linley looked at Keen with praise in his eyes as well. Sis, in the future, when you are following Big Brother Lay, you have to take good care of yourself. Keen's eyes were starting to turn red. But as long as you are with Big Brother Lay, I'm not too worried about you. Lyndon was standing not too far away from the hotel, and had watched as Jen and her younger brother had entered. Let's sit down nearby and take a rest for now. Lyndon pointed at the first floor of the hotel. But while resting, we have to keep an eye on things outside. When Jen and Keen head out, we'll immediately follow them. The other 5 all nodded, and they followed Lyndon into the hotel. But after 1 or 2 minutes, Albert brought around 10 or so people into the hotel. Is this the place? Albert asked one of his subordinates. Yes, young master. Miss Jen entered this hotel. Hearing this, Albert nodded. Go investigate for me and find out who the bastard is that Jen likes. As he spoke, Albert rubbed the wound on his face. Last night, he really did cut quite the sorry figure. He knew that Jen was a magus of the 3rd rank, but he himself was a warrior of the 4th rank. He was planning to slip in while she was asleep and rape her. That shouldn't have been too hard. So, late at night, he stealthily crept towards Jen's room. But who would have expected that Jen's room had a female guard in it, and not just Jen? What's more, there were guards hidden outside the room as well. He, the stately successor to the clan leader position of the Jacques clan, was soundly thrashed by that female guard. Fortunately, Jen and the female guard knew who he was and so had not dared to kill him. At the time, Jen had also told him to give up, because in the future, she was going to travel to the ends of the earth by the side of the man she loved. Could it be that she is going to go by the side of this mysterious warrior of the 9th rank and travel the world with him? Albert's heart was filled with suppressed rage. Let's sit here for a while. We'll have some food and wait. Albert shouted. Albert led his group of men into the Nile Hotel as well, into the main floor. But as soon as the fuming Albert entered the hotel, his eyes immediately lit up as he saw who was inside. Albert stared fixedly at Lyndon. This beauty is as lovely as an angel. Albert sighed to himself. Albert was quite choosy. He was already bored with ordinary beautiful girls. But Lyndon truly was astonishingly beautiful. Not only were her facial features exquisite, she also had that cold, holy aura about her. Lyndon, no longer putting on an act, had totally returned to her usual temperament. The holier and purer a woman seemed, the more Albert desired her. Albert felt extremely satisfied when he had a holy and pure woman beneath his thighs. Pretty lady, your humble servant is named Albert Jacques. Very happy to meet you. Albert walked over, saying modestly. Lyndon glanced at him, not paying him any attention. *CK off. One of the golden-haired men next to Lyndon barked. You lookin' to die. The guard behind Albert immediately drew his weapon, staring coldly at the golden-haired man. This time, as he followed Jen over, Albert had been very careful. He knew that Jen's paramour was a warrior of the 9th rank, and thus everyone he brought today was an expert. One of them was a student of his great-grandfather, a warrior of the 9th rank. Jacques. Lyndon suddenly turned to look at him. She only now had paid attention to the lineage of the buffoon in front of her. Yes. Albert smiled proudly. One of Albert's servants said arrogantly, the young master of my clan is the successor to the clan leader position. Your group actually dares to be impolite to the young master. The Northwest Administrative Province was the domain of the Jacques clan. Albert was the successor to the clan leader position. Indeed, he had the right to act so overbearingly. Albert. A middle-aged man standing behind Albert said softly, "None of those 6, including that woman, are weak. It is very likely that they are all warriors of the 8th rank, and perhaps even of the 9th. Albert was startled. At this moment, Linden rose to her feet, smiling. "Young Master Albert, hello. I've come with my 5 fellow apprentices in search of a man we intend to kill." "5 fellow apprentices? Who is your master?" the middle-aged man behind Albert asked. "The monolithic sword saint, Hatesun," Linden said. The reason why Linden dared to make wild claims like this was primarily because the monolithic sword saint was a man who liked to roam all about the world. Thus, there were most likely very few people in the entire O'Brien Empire who knew exactly who the apprentices of the monolithic sword saint were. The monolithic sword saint? Everyone was shocked. "Young Master." A servant of Albert's came running over. "Young Master, we have the information. The man whom Miss Jen came here to meet registered under the name of Lay." "Lay?" Albert frowned. "Never heard of him." Albert turned to look at the expert he had brought. "Uncle Slan Silan, are you confident you can deal with him?" The middle-aged man frowned. But hearing this, Linden's heart was suddenly swayed. "Young Master Albert, can it be that you have a grudge against that man named Lay?" Linden laughed. Albert looked at her in surprise. "What of it? My 5 fellow apprentices and I have come to deal with him." Linden smiled. Albert was immediately excited. He really did hope to develop a closer relationship with this holy, pure beauty, and this was an excellent opportunity. "Perhaps I will not only kill Lay and acquire Jen, I will also acquire this beauty in front of me." Albert's heart began to quiver. Linden's beauty was not one whit inferior to Jen's, and in fact she was even superior. Albert smiled. "That is wonderful. Everyone will work together, then. What is your name?" "I am called Danlin." Linden still used the same false name. "Beautiful Lady Danlin, your master, Lord Hatesun, has previously paid a visit to the Jacques clan before as well. At that time, he had spent a full month together with my great-grandfather," Albert said, attempting to draw a closer connection. "Oh." Linden seemed rather surprised. "Indeed." Albert then looked at the 5 men behind Linden. "Are your people confident in your ability to deal with Lay? Do you not have faith in the disciples my master taught?" Linden said somewhat unhappily. That frown on Linden's face when she was unhappy only made her look all the more mesmerizing. Albert could almost feel his heart twitching ferociously. Just as Albert and Linden were chatting, the people keeping tabs on Jen rushed in from the outside. "Young Master, bad news. That Lay took Miss Jen with him and actually separated from young Master Keen. And they just exited the courtyard. It seems they plan to leave." Albert immediately jumped to his feet. Albert, Linden, and the others all stared at the outside through the window. Indeed, Jen was following Linley on the street in a direction heading outside of the city. As far as Keen, his group was taking a different route. The two even waved farewell to each other. "She's leaving? Jen is really leaving with this Lay?" Linden's face changed, and her mind became unsettled. The strategy she had just came up with had just been ruined by Linley suddenly leaving with Jen. She didn't expect that Jen would leave with Linley. After all, Jen had been with Keen for all these years. Jen is really going to leave with that bastard? It seems the two of them really do plan to wander the world together. Albert fumed. "Men, attend me. Don't be hasty." Linden's eyes lit up, and she immediately interrupted him. Albert looked questioningly at Linden. Linden, by now, knew that with Linley's departure alongside Jen, her previous plan was now useless. But there was another way. "Albert, send some people to follow them. Once they leave the city, we will ride horses after them. Outside the city, my fellow apprentices and I will kill him," Linden said confidently. "Outside the city, most likely Mackenzie would only be able to arrive after they had already killed Linley. Oh! Albert was delighted. If he didn't have to personally act, of course he would only be all the happier. How about this? After they leave the city, lead a squad of knights after them. Myself and my 5 fellow apprentices will join the squad, so Linley doesn't notice us at first. When the time is right, Lyndon laughed coldly. When Linley was caught off guard, the 6 of them would suddenly erupt from the squad and surround Linley, setting up the angel battle formation. In a short period of time, they would kill Linley. Once the angel battle formation was successfully set up, they had a virtually 100% chance of killing Linley. After all, when angels set up the angel battle formation, even if they didn't go all out, they could still kill early-stage saint-level experts. Once they did go all out and allow their bodies to collapse, even a middle-stage saint-level expert might perish. No problem. Albert patted his chest and guaranteed. Lyndon and the other 5 were all smiles, while Albert was smiling radiantly as well. Outside the city, Jen rode on the back of the Black Panther, while Linley was walking, as smooth and graceful as the wind. While walking, Linley chatted and laughed with Jen. Jen's face was radiant, filled with the light of true happiness. As long as she could often see Linley and chat with him, Jen felt that she was already very happy and fortunate. Jen, in a bit, please be careful. Linley suddenly said. What? Jen was somewhat startled. Linley said casually, there's a squad of knights chasing after us. A hint of a murderous intent was in Linley's eyes. This squad most likely had to do with the Radiant Church. It is about time to truly test the power of the 100-layered waves anyhow. Linley intentionally continued forward at their current pace, allowing the squad to have the chance to catch up. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 47, The Angel Battle Formation. It was deep into autumn already. The cold autumn wind howled across the land like icy blades as an elite squad of knights galloped forward. Faster, faster! With Albert dressed in simple armor leading the way, the group quickly galloped forward on the desolate road, with several dozen knights following behind Albert. By Albert's side, there was a middle-aged man, the one and only expert of the 9th rank under Albert's command. As for Lyndon and the other 5, they were also wearing ordinary knight's armor and wearing grey knight's helmets. Just from appearances, one wouldn't be able to tell that Lyndon and the others were any different from the rest of the knights. Remember, Lyndon said quietly to the 5 men with her. When we catch up to Linley, once Albert gives the order to attack, each of you will split up and follow these knights to surround Linley. With Linley off guard, we'll execute the angel battle formation. Remember, no matter what, don't be too hasty with your attack. You absolutely must await my order. Yes, Lord. The 5 all nodded. A hint of a smile was on Lyndon's lips. Giddy up! The sound of hoof steps continued to ring out, and the squad kicked up clouds of dust in their wake. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled a great distance. Linley had intentionally lowered his own speed to allow this group of people to catch up. Naturally, after just a short period of time at full gallop, Albert's squad saw Linley's figure. He's right ahead. Albert was very happy, and he immediately began to shout, faster, faster. Those knights began to call out loudly as well, and they prodded their horses to gallop even faster. Within the thunder of their hoof steps, this group of knights quickly neared Linley. Remember, hang on to Haru's neck. Haru will take you to my place first. Linley instructed softly. Jen looked at Linley with concern. Big brother Lei, what about you? Don't worry. I'll just get rid of this bit of trouble. At the same time, Linley glanced at his black cloud panther, Haru. Mentally, he ordered, Haru, you can go now. Remember, protect Jen. Growl. Haru let out an arrogant growl, and then slowly began to speed up before suddenly transforming into a black blur, disappearing far away, without giving Albert's men any chance to stop him. Clatter. The group of knights totally blocked Linley's forward path. They didn't block the Black Cloud Panther from leaving, because they couldn't block him. As for Linden and the others, they were capable of blocking the panther, but they were happy to see it leave. After all, their target was Linley. Jen. Seeing this happen, Albert couldn't help but grow angry. Turning furiously towards Linley, Albert sneered, "Punk, you had your magical beast take Jen away? HRMPH, let me tell you, Jen is mine. As for you, let me send you off to the netherworld. Haha, everyone, attack!" Albert pointed angrily at Linley. With the clatter of hoof steps, the dozens of knights immediately surrounded Linley. Linley just stood there in the middle, not caring in the slightest. Bei only stood arrogantly on top of Linley's shoulders, using his beady little eyes to stare disdainfully at the knights. "My cousin Jen isn't for the likes of you to touch. You should consider what lowly status you have," Albert said arrogantly. He had the feeling that everything was now under his control. Linley only calmly glanced at the surrounding knights. "I originally wanted to get rid of the Radiant Church's forces. I didn't expect that I would have attracted this group of useless fools." Linley shook his head slowly. But right at that moment, "Boss!" Bei suddenly stared at the knights. "Danlin is there." "Danlin." As though a bucket of cold water had been poured on Linley's head, Linley shivered once. "The Radiant Church's forces are with them." Linley began to be cautious. "I can smell her scent," Bei said confidently. She thought that by putting on a helmet and some armor, that Bei, wouldn't be able to discover her. Linley still didn't call forth any of his weapons. There was no need to rush to using weapons. When the weapons suddenly appeared from his interspatial ring at the critical moment, that would catch the opponents off guard. Linley paid no heed to Albert, who was still arrogantly spouting his nonsense, and instead carefully paid attention to the surrounding knights. "Charge! Kill him!" Albert ordered arrogantly. But just at this moment, a cruel voice rang out as well. "Kill!" Suddenly, 6 rays of gleaming white light suddenly connected with each other. In terms of appearance, it was exactly the same technique as had been used by the 6 special executors to trap Linley. That combined formation attack actually was the angel battle formation. But in terms of power, when actual angels used this formation, it was far more powerful. Swish swish! Those 6 rays of light, when connecting, pierced through the bodies of several of the knights that were in the way. 3 of them died immediately, while 8 were heavily injured. Ah! One of the knights was pierced through the chest, leaving a small hole behind. This knight immediately toppled off his horse. He screamed twice, then fell silent. "Haha, it's been almost 9 years. The Radiant Church hasn't learned any new tricks." Linley began to laugh loudly. "What's going on?" Albert was terrified. The middle-aged man by Albert's side was quite experienced. His face immediately changed, and he shouted, "Quick, leave! Those 6 are not the disciples of Hadesun, they are from the Radiant Church, and they are all experts of the 9th rank. Leave! If you tarry, it'll be too late." Albert was useless in most aspects, but his fleeing instinct was top-notch. "Giddy up, giddy up!" Albert no longer cared about killing Linley at this moment, as he hurriedly galloped away alongside that middle-aged man. Some of the knights were trapped in the midst of that angel battle formation. Terrified, some of them thought to try and flee out, but as soon as they ran into that white light, their bodies turned to ash, as though they had been burnt by an extremely high-temperature flame. HRM? It seems to be more powerful than that of those 6 special executors. Linley sighed in praise. "Flee!" The remaining knights all fled at high speed, while those who did not had all been killed by Linden. In the entire desolate landscape, only Linley, Bei, and Linden's squad remained. Boom! The armor covering Linden and her men split apart as they returned to their normal appearances. 1 woman and 5 men. Lyndon's group stared very confidently at Linley. "Linley, aren't you afraid?" Lyndon laughed coldly at Linley. Linley glanced at Lyndon. "I must admit, your acting abilities are extremely formidable. You were able to successfully play the part of a headstrong young lady. However, you weren't aware that 8 years ago, at the city of Hesse, I killed 6 special executors who also used this combination attack." Crack, ripple. As Linley was speaking, those black draconic scales pierced through his clothes, while those cold, gleaming spikes erupted one at a time from his spine, his forehead, his elbows, and his knees. A long draconic tail sprouted from behind him as well. Linley's eyes had become that cold, remorseless dark gold color. "Linley, we aren't the same as those 6. Lyndon said calmly. "Today, you will definitely die." As she spoke, the density of the light increased once more, seeming to even cover the sky above the area. Linley's dark golden eyes swept the 6 of them. In a cold voice, he said, "I have to tell you something. I really dislike this formation attack." Linley still remembered that dreamlike white glow. Grandpa Doring. Linley could clearly remember the scene when, 8 years ago, Grandpa Doring had sacrificed himself to kill those 6 special executors. From that day forth, Grandpa Doring had forever vanished from the universe. "Kill him!" Lyndon ordered coldly. Whoosh! Lyndon's group charged forward towards Linley, and that cage of light began to shrink at high speed. Anything and everything touched by that light was turned into dust. It was utterly unblockable. Radiant Church. "Haha," Linley laughed coldly at the 6 attackers. Kicking off from the ground, he leapt towards one of the attackers. "How sad!" Lyndon stared coldly at Linley's attempt to resist. When joined forces, their defense was incredibly high. No one below the saint level could harm them at all. They didn't care about Linley's attack at all. "The first one!" Linley's voice suddenly rang out like a bolt of thunder, as from his hands, the adamantine heavy sword suddenly appeared. Transforming into a blur, the adamantine heavy sword slashed through the air, smashing against the body of one of the attackers. How laughable! The 6 of them didn't care at all. That angel of the 9th rank originally didn't even bother dodging, but the strange thing was, Linley's blow hadn't caused the white light to activate and block it. Profound truths of the earth 100-layered waves. Linley's dark golden eyes stared coldly at the man. This angel of the 9th rank only felt a very queer sensation, as though giant warmers were suddenly smashing against his internal organs again and again. His light-style power was totally useless against this sort of attack. Boom! 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 Those strange attacks continue to reverberate in the angel's head as well as body. Ah! The 9th-ranked angel slumped to the ground. The angel battle formation, now lacking a person, had been destroyed, and the white light disappeared. Lyndon and the other 4 stared at this scene in astonishment. They couldn't believe it. Linley quirked his lips. That white light had been light-style energy, in essence, it was the same as battle chi. But the profound truths of the earth which Linley used was a totally different sort of attack. Whenever it encountered an obstacle, it would transmit through it, with only a bit of reduction in attack power. No obstacle could totally block it. This so-called combination attack, before the profound truths of the earth, was nothing but a joke. Linley's full power attack had disintegrated the internal organs of an angel of the 9th rank in a single blow. He was dead as dead could be, and his soul vanished from the world. You killed him." Lyndon and the other 4 were stunned. The angel battle formation had been broken, just like that. "Formation attacks are useless against me." Linley's remorseless eyes swept them with his gaze. "That's one of you down. Now for the rest of you." In the Yulan continent, anyone, including saint-level experts, would die once their bodies were destroyed. When these angels who had descended into human bodies fought, even when they went all out, they weren't actually destroying their own bodies. They were just ignoring their body's ability to contain their power, in essence overloading them. This sort of overloading technique would cause the body to slowly break down. This sort of breakdown was gradual. Only after, say, 30 seconds, would the body have decayed to the point where the soul could no longer survive in it. But since Linley reduced the angel's internal organs into paste with a single blow, even if the angel wanted to go all out at this point, it was too late. Lord! The other four looked at Lyndon. A holy light was suddenly shining from Lyndon's face. Since this mortal has such an unusual attack, we no longer need to worry about our lives. Prepare to return to the embrace of the Lord. Yes, Lord. Their eyes were very cold and calm. Their faces began to shine with holy light as well. Swish, swish, a pair of illusion-like white wings suddenly sprouted from the backs of those four men. In the blink of an eye, those four ordinary men each now were winged, and they flew into the sky. Four humanoids with wings were flying in the air. Seeing this, Linley was shocked. Angels! They are angels! One of the legendary, powerful races had just appeared in front of him. Even the weakest two-winged angels were terrifyingly powerful early-stage saint-level experts. Kill! Lyndon issued her order, not wasting any time at all. This was because the bodies of these four were already beginning to emit blood, which was constantly flowing downwards. Clearly, their bodies were already starting to crumble, and their blood vessels were beginning to collapse. The early-stage saint-level energy was beyond the capacity of these bodies. They didn't have much time. They had to kill Linley as quickly as possible. Whoosh! With a flap of their radiant wings, the four angels transformed into four white blurs as they charged towards Linley. Book 8, The 10,000 Kilometer Journey Chapter 48, The Four-Winged Angel. Tonight, the moon was in the sky. The moon was very bright, covering the wilderness with its desolate glow. And in this desolate wilderness, four white angels were gliding down through the air coldly, like an illusionary mirage, drawing ever closer to Linley. What incredible speed! Linley was surprised. Right now, Linley's offense was powerful, but his defense was weak. His offense was powerful enough to kill an early-stage saint-level combatant. But his defense was poor. Although he could take blows below the saint level of power, he still couldn't take blows from early-stage saint-level combatants. HRMPH Linley launched himself off the ground. With the aid of the supersonic spell, Linley very agilely began to dodge. In terms of speed, however, Linley was still slightly slower than these four angels. Scree! With an ear-piercing screech, a black blur suddenly appeared, moving even faster than those four angels, colliding against the angel nearest Linley. Die! That angel coldly smashed his fist against the black blur. Bam! The fist, glowing with holy light, smashed viciously against the black blur. The black blur was knocked to the floor, but with a ricochet from the ground, it quickly charged up again. Swish! Two fierce claws extended out, swiping viciously against the angel. One claw smashed against the angel's fist, while the other struck the angel's body. The angel's body was already at the point of collapse. Struck by such a vicious claw, the body actually trembled, a layer of muscle being ripped open and blood pouring out. Bam! Circling around once, the black blur smashed viciously against the angel a second time. This strike only hastened the collapse of the angel's body. With a boom sound, the angel's body directly disintegrated. The white wings disappeared. Just like that, a two-winged angel had died in battle. Lyndon, who was watching the battle from behind, stared in astonishment at the black blur. She could tell that the black blur was Linley's pet, that adorable shadow mouse. But by now, the shadow mouse was already a meter long, no longer just that 20-centimeter long, hand-sized critter. And the black shadow mouse was astonishingly fast, even faster than two-winged angels. Bebe was simply too astonishing. 6 years ago, in the mountain range of magical beasts, Bebe was roughly on par with Haru in their battle. 6 years later, Haru hasn't improved at all. He's at his limit. But Bebe has continued to grow these 6 years. In terms of speed, Bebe is now far faster than Haru. As for defense, perhaps even Barker, a saint-level undying warrior when transformed, doesn't have much higher defense than Bebe. Linley knew exactly how formidable Bebe was. Right now Bebe's speed was simply too high. Every day, Linley was absorbed in his bitter training. Bebe did nothing but eat, sleep, eat. And yet, the pace of his strength growth was faster than Linley's. One could tell how powerful Bebe had become just from looking at his transformation. From half a meter in the past to 1 meter long now. Squeak! Bebe let out an excited cry, while mentally transmitting, "Boss, let me handle these two-winged angels. Their attacks can't hurt me at all." Linley was speechless. Two-winged angels, early stage saint rank. Couldn't harm Bebe. What sort of freakishly powerful magical beast was Bebe? The other 3 two-winged angels, seeing how this black blur's lightning-fast claws had destroyed one of their comrades with 2 swipes, couldn't help but be filled with both shock and fury. Not giving them the time to react, Bebe immediately charged towards another one of them. "Ignore him. Kill Linley." Lyndon's cold voice rang out. The 3 angels paid no more attention to that terrifying black blur, charging towards Linley. But although they paid Bebe no heed, Bebe himself wouldn't let them off. After all, Bebe was slightly faster than them. Whoosh! A black blur flashed by, with Bebe arriving next to one of the angels. Linley had run far away, as he was not confident in his ability to deal with the group attack of the angels. Only in single combat was he confident of success. After all, Linley wasn't like Bebe, with his freakishly tough defense. Slash! Bebe opened his maw wide, chomping towards one of the angels. Bam! The two-winged angel slammed his fists against Bebe, but Bebe actually wrapped his twin claws around the angel's right fist, and then bit at it. Crunch! The right hand was bitten off. Resisting the pain, the two-winged angel smashed his left fist against the black shadow mouse angrily. This attack carried with it virtually all of the power available to the two-winged angel, and his left hand shone like the sun. Bam! The left hand smashed against the black shadow mouse, but at the same time, the black shadow mouse thrust its claws fiercely against the two-winged angel's chest. Skin and flesh ripped open. Blood sprayed everywhere. Bebe was smashed to the ground, but the two-winged angel's body trembled. The vessels in its body totally collapsed, and even its heart had imploded, unable to sustain that amount of power any longer. As blood leaked everywhere, the two-winged angel collapsed from the skies. Yet another angel had fallen. Boss! Bebe was looking anxiously at Linley. Bam! Linley was sent flying by a fist, but the two-winged angel's body shuddered, and then crumbled, falling from the skies. The last remaining two-winged angel immediately chased after Linley. Boss! Bebe's speed reached its limit. With Linley constantly dodging as well, Bebe managed to interpose himself between Linley and the angel, just before the angel would have struck Linley again. Bebe stared angrily at the two-winged angel. Boss, you okay? Bebe mentally transmitted. I'm fine. But if I took more of those blows, I wouldn't be able to take it. Linley wiped the blood away from the corner of his lips. Part of the scales around his chest were smashed apart, with blood leaking out from behind them. Linley couldn't help but be frightened. Just then, the two angels had pincer attacked him. Linley was slightly slower than them to begin with. In the end, his only option was to block one attack with his own, while accepting the second blow. Still not fast enough. If I could match Bebe in terms of speed and defense, I wouldn't have cut such a sorry state. Linley sighed to himself. 6 years ago, Bebe was roughly as fast as he was, while Bebe's defense was a level higher. But 6 years later, Bebe's speed was nearly double his own. In terms of defense, Bibi's was multiple levels higher now. The most irritating thing was, Bebe remained at the 9th level. He had not reached the saint level. No wonder the Black Cloud Panther, Haru, had submitted to him. Haru was a proud magical beast of the 9th rank with extremely high natural talent, but compared to Bebe, his so-called talent was far weaker. Using his astonishing defense and speed, Bebe dealt with the final two-winged angel. In the blink of an eye, the 4 angels had all died. Their leader, Linden, remained in her human form, watching from afar. "Boss, are 2 winged angels of the early stage saint level? Why did I feel that they weren't that powerful?" Landing on the ground, Bebe mentally spoke to Linley. Linley chuckled, casting a glance at Linden. "Bebe, didn't you notice that after they utilized their angelic power, blood began to flow from their bodies? Clearly, their bodies couldn't withstand that level of power. They weren't truly early stage saint levels, although they had the power, their bodies were still as weak as before." Linley had immediately seen the truth of the matter. Those bodies had been at the breaking point already. A few good blows to those bodies would cause them to totally collapse. What a powerful magical beast! Staring at Bebe, Linden said with surprise, "Linley, I only heard that you had a shadow mouse, but it seems he isn't a shadow mouse. He seems more like the legendary ruler of the rat race." "What's that?" Linley looked at Linden. Linley had always been curious as to exactly what sort of magical beast Bebe was. The type of magical beast with the greatest defense and the highest speed, could he really be that type? Linden had lived in the realm of the Radiant Sovereign for many years. As a 4-winged angel, she had seen many things. There were quite a few magical beasts that would reach the saint level upon becoming an adult. But even amongst those, there were still a few extremely rare and outstanding types of magical beasts. This was the first time Linden had seen any of the legendary rulers of the rat race. "Boss, what's this woman saying?" Bebe looked doubtfully at Linley. "She's saying you are a ruler amongst the rats." Linley chuckled. Even the likes of Doring Coward and the Holy Emperor didn't know what kind of magical beast Bebe was, but it seemed as though this Linden had a bit of a clue. Only, from the sound of it, Linden was just guessing, and wasn't certain. "Linley, you should feel proud." Just now, Linden had only been briefly surprised by Bebe's performance. Now, she had totally calmed down again. "For the sake of killing you, a cherub, a 4-winged angel, is about to die alongside you." Linden's entire body began to shine with white light, and then 4 white wings sprouted forth from Linden's back, stretching and spreading out as Linden took to the skies. "A cherub? Not good." The look on Linley's face changed. The more wings an angel had, the more powerful they were, and as the number of wings increased, the power increased at a rapid geometrical rate. "Boss, let me go." Bebe excitedly let out a sharp screech, then transformed into a blur as he charged towards the cherub. Linden smiled coldly. Her 4 wings fluttered slightly, and she suddenly transformed into a white blur. Her astonishing speed was actually not one whit inferior to that of Bebe's. Boom! Linden's fist, clad in holy light and appearing like white jade, smashed against Bebe. This time, Bebe was smashed down, flying into the ground like a meteor and even creating a deep crater in the ground. Bebe's body had been smashed deep into the earth. "Bebe!" Linley was shocked. Linley had guessed at how powerful this cherub was, but he didn't expect the cherub to be so terrifyingly strong. Boss, I'm fine." Bebe's weak voice rang out in Linley's mind. Linley could guess at how heavily injured Bebe currently was. The power of a cherub was far greater than that of a 2-winged angel. "Linley, it is your turn." Linden's body was already beginning to be covered with blood, but Linden didn't care about her collapsing body at all. Linden knew that she had, at the very least, 10 seconds of life left. These 10 seconds were more than enough for her to kill Linley. Those 4 white wings of light fluttered slightly, and then Linden transformed into a white blur. Linley couldn't see her clearly, as she appeared almost like a mirage, suddenly appearing in front of him. The only thing Linley could see were Linden's cold, remorseless eyes, now silver in color. Time to go all out. Ah! Linley launched himself off the ground, rapidly retreating while at the same time, the blood-violet god's word appeared in his hand. He immediately activated that terrifying baleful aura hidden within blood-violet. This terrifyingly baleful aura had influenced even the peak stage saint-level expert, Stella, much less Linden. Trembling slightly, that strange bloody light covered and began to flow on the surface of blood-violet. That baleful aura entered Linden's mind, attacking her soul. A hint of fear suddenly appeared in Linden's cold eyes. She only sensed that she seemed to have returned to that time when she was with the army of angels engaging in warfare in other planes, and had suddenly encountered within the depths that terrifying demon. She still remembered how that demon had easily butchered so many of the angels. An entire army of hundreds of thousands of angels had been butchered. That full power punch of hers, under the influence of blood-violet, began to grow weaker. At the same time as he activated blood-violet, Linley fiercely swung his adamantine heavy sword forward, chopping mercilessly against Linden's body. Profound truths of the earth 100-layered waves. Boom! Linley was struck by Linden's fist as well, which had been reduced to roughly half power. His black scales immediately split apart, and Linley's chest caved in as a large volume of blood poured out of Linley's mouth. Like a ripped sandbag, Linley smashed against the ground, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. Linden stood there disbelievingly. How could he possess such a terrifying baleful aura? And then, Linden suddenly felt herself bound by the laws of the universe. Her soul, not resisting in the slightest, was drawn forth by the laws, disappearing from the plane of the Yulon continent. As for Linden's corpse, it gently slumped down, fresh blood leaking from her mouth and nose.